All right. I believe we are live because I hit that button. What is going on, everybody? I'm Randall Thor19, the man with the million. Welcome to my channel, and this is the Xbox 2 podcast. We do every single week, usually Fridays, but sometimes on Saturdays. And my co-host is the one and only supreme editor of Windows Central. You like that, Jez? Jez Corden of Windows Central, the supreme editor. Although you're probably not the supreme editor, but no, in my mind you are. In my mind you are Windows Central. You know.
Thank you very much. In my mind too. Oh man, another week of news in the bag. Another podcast on a Friday. We're on a roll, baby.
I know.
How many times have we actually 2 in a row? It's been a while since we've had 2 in a row on a Friday, but here we are. We're rocking it. So let's try and keep this ball rolling on Friday podcast.
Yeah, I didn't talk to you until 20 minutes ago. I was just hoping. I was like, I'm gonna put out the tweets. We're ready to roll. I'm just hoping Jez wakes up from his nap and is like, I'm ready to talk some video games, and not I'm too busy. We'll do the show tomorrow, and I would have to be like, oh man, I gotta delete these tweets and delete the podcast, But nope, Jez is here.
Nope, we survived.
So how's your week been, buddy? Since the last time we spoke, pretty good. Just pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Can't complain. Nothing too amazing or spooky has happened. Just been working, same old sort of stuff. I have conjunctivitis, which is a eye infection. Ew. So that's yeah.
Ew. How'd you get that? How'd you get conjunctivitis?
I don't know. I keep sleeping face down. I think I just rubbed my face on the pillow or something. I don't know. But yeah, so that's been the unique aspect of my week is an eye infection, which is
Wait, do you have an eye infection or do you have pink eye? Because I
don't know, what isn't conjunctivitis pink eye?
I mean, I don't know. I've never had pink eye, so I have no idea.
I don't know either. I thought it was, but maybe not. I also, I don't know. I've been playing with an Oculus Rift. Oculus Quest this week.
Well,
you ever tried that?
Our buddy Special Ed of Xbox Era says conjunctivitis is UK AU for pink eye. So you got freaking pink eye? What do you do? Been scratching your butt and then rubbing your eye or something?
I don't know. Maybe.
Ugh. Come on, Jez.
I don't know. I think it's more like drooling on my pillow and then rubbing my face on it while I'm asleep or something. Because I keep sleeping face down for some reason.
That's not good. I always sleep on my sides, either my left or my right. I don't sleep face down.
I try to sleep on my side, and then I wake up and I've been sleeping face down, my eye right on the pillow, and I don't know. It's kind of lame. So now my eye's infected. So GG.
There's always something wrong. There was that problem with your stomach for what seemed like months. Then we thought you had COVID. Everybody thought you were gonna choke to death a couple weeks ago on the podcast. Now you got pink eye.
Yeah, this is like the getting old health problems podcast, and then you had your back problems.
Yeah, I had my back problem. The funny thing about the back problem was that was literally because I gave up caffeine. I stopped drinking pop soda. I say pop here in Chicago, but and I thought all right, I'll just get a really bad headache for a couple days, going through caffeine withdrawal. Nope, couldn't walk. My back was in so much pain. It was just. And if I would have known that, I wouldn't have given up caffeine because I was in the worst pain of my life. I couldn't. It hurt so bad. But, that's all over. It only lasted for a few days. But hey, we got our first super chat here, Jez. And this is it's a very interesting question because me and you were talking about this right before the show started. It's from Alexander Dark 91. He says, "Love the show, guys. Did you see our pal Ed just tweeted he thinks Techland is being acquired by Xbox. I did see our pal, Special Ed, who has requested we no longer call him Mediocre Ed. So I will adhere to his wishes. From this moment forth, he is once again Special Ed. He did tweet out a couple days before Gearbox got acquired by Embracer that, perhaps Embracer grew, or perhaps Gearbox was going to get acquired. A lot of people thought it was Microsoft. A lot of people, because, Special Ed runs Xbox Era alongside, Sicca Mechanico and Figments and a few other people. So he tweeted out basically, I forget what the exact wording, but if you recall on the podcast a couple weeks ago, Jez, we had mentioned the Defining Duke podcast that is run with Maddie Plays and ACG, Carrick. And he mentioned that he had heard that there might be an exclusive game coming from a studio that was essentially multi-platform, but Xbox was in talks with them that could turn that game into exclusive. And Special Ed said that he did some digging of his own, talked to a couple people, and essentially he thinks that Techland was the studio that ACG might have been referring to, and that it's possible Dying Light 2 might be reintroduced this year as an Xbox exclusive. And potentially, maybe, this is the studio that Microsoft potentially might acquire, because there was rumors that they were going to make another Bethesda-level acquisition sooner rather than later, or at some point in time, that it would be Techland. What do you think about that?
I mean, I personally don't have any information on this, so, anything I say is just pure speculation. But it would certainly be interesting if Microsoft acquired Techland. It's also sort of, I don't know. It would be, for me, a little bit unexpected because, Techland, on the one hand, haven't put out many games. But on the other hand, Dying Light 1 has proven itself to be incredibly resilient as an ongoing experience with, DLC drops, and a lot of people, it has pretty consistent monthly active users considering it wasn't necessarily designed to be a service type game by any means. But a lot of people play it ongoing. And one of the things we don't really know about Dying Light 2 is how it functions as an ongoing experience. It's not like a full-blown service type game, but like an ongoing sort of, game. I suppose in the similar vein as Borderlands and stuff like that. And yeah, people saying in chat, Dying Light 1 still being supported. I actually got a email that Dying Light 1 is getting new DLC pretty soon recently. I'm not sure if that's under embargo or not, actually. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I don't know if that's public or not. But Dying Light 1 still getting content is the point. And so I think it does fit with what Microsoft's looking for in a studio. And Dying Light 2, I've seen Dying Light 2 in a couple of previews at Gamescom. And I can't remember if I saw it at Gamescom or E3. It's been so long, Rand, since we had actual shows, in-person pre-pandemic shows. Do you remember those? Do you remember those, Rand?
I do remember those. I actually really did. After we went through the Summer Games Fest, or Summer Games Mess, as Jeff Grubb called it, where each week, or maybe each company had a different event, I really missed E3. Not necessarily because I miss, I was going to E3 or going to PAX and being with a bunch of people. Because for the most part, I'm not a very big social person. I don't really like big crowds too much. But I miss E3 because I was just all the news that you'd want within a couple days instead of all this kind of lame individual announcements. But I mean, you've been to all these events. You've been to PAX, and
No, I've never been to PAX.
Never been to PAX, but you've been to Gamescom and E3, So, yeah. Do you miss the events?
Yes and no. Like the amount of work involved is just it's so exhausting, but it's also like it's really energizing meeting all the the devs and the creative people who actually make this industry what it is. It's and also the community. Like it's like one time of the year that the community from all over the world can get together. But I digress. I saw Dying Light 2 at Gamescom or E3, and even like, man, that would have been 2019, maybe even earlier. Maybe it was 2018 when I saw it. But even then, it just looks so amazing, like such a huge step up from Dying Light 1, which was also a really excellent game. Like, really great combat, really tactile feeling. I hate using the word visceral combat, but such a cliche to call combat visceral, but it really is like the definition of that cliche. Where like you could just mash zombies with all sorts of weapons and stuff like that. And that like that some of those really cool sort of, you know, PvP sort of features where like players could invade your game as a zombie and stuff like that. I never really experienced that myself, but it was they were among the first games to like really try that on that sort of scale. Um and then Dying Light 2 looked like it had like a lot of advancements going for it. Like the zombies, it was almost less about the zombies and more about human factions and stuff. Although there were still like pockets of zombies hiding out in dark areas in the game, and then the zombies come out at night with the day and night cycle, and then during the day you have to deal with human factions, and that is like a really interesting dynamic. And they also have like a bigger emphasis on story and then player choice. Like it just sounded like way more ambitious than the first game. So if Dying Light 2, but Dying Light 2 got delayed indefinitely last year, I think. They announced yeah. And then last year they tweeted that they're gonna delay the game past its planned launch date with no announced time frame, which, sometimes is spooky when devs do that. And then also Chris Avalon, who was contributing to the story, he I don't know if I pronounced his name wrong, but um there was some allegations against him, and that prompted Techland to remove all of his content from Dying Light 2. So they had to like retrofit parts of the story and stuff to remove his contributions. So I can't imagine that helped development along. But I don't know. It hopefully it is soon to be, ready to be re-debuted to the world and stuff like that. Um, and if these rumors are indeed true about it coming to Xbox as an exclusive and Microsoft buying up Techland and stuff, then I guess Dying Light 2 is further along than we might expect. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It could be true. Don't know. Literally have no information, but I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about Dying Light? Mm. Hmm. Oh, hang on. People are saying they can't hear you. Yeah, it says Randy muted, can't hear.
There we go. I had the wrong thing muted. My bad. It's like I'm a noob doing this for the first time. No,
Oh my god.
yeah. So what was I saying? I was,
You're saying you would keep your eye on
I
it.
would say keep your eye. I would say keep your eye on this one. don't dismiss it just out of hand, like, you know, the Sega thing or some of the other ones like Ubisoft or whatever. I think this one is worth paying attention to. Whether or not like they acquire them, you know, who knows? You know, but there's a good chance maybe Dying Light does get repurposed and repackaged into essentially an exclusive. So yeah, don't dismiss this one out of like, you know, right away. There might be some truth to it, and only time will tell on that one. But yeah, thanks for the super chat, Alex, and you know, Special Ed, if you're right on this, well, this will go a long way to you know, making up for those Elden Ring mistakes. Multiple Elden Ring mistakes. RA89 says Square Enix flirting with Game Pass on Twitter. I did see that, and there is a topic that I wanted to talk about regarding Final Fantasy during the show, so we will definitely get into that. Sorry I was muted, by the way. That was my bad. I muted it because the dog was barking, and Jez could hear me because I didn't mute Discord, but I muted OBS, so you couldn't hear me. So yeah. Anyways,
yeah, you have to hit the correct mute button for those.
I know, right? I need one of these like I don't know, one of those devices where you can just kind of press each thing and kind of do a bunch of Elgato Stream Decks or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like we got
calling you Randall muted now.
Randall muted. At least I'm no longer Randall chopped liver. Did you see last podcast? It seems that we have some dedicated, some very dedicated websites that follow the podcast and will listen to it, and any sort of rumblings that we say, they'll write up articles on. Because we were written up in multiple articles about what we said about Killer Instinct 2, right, Jez?
Yeah, I saw that.
Essentially that it's just weird. It's like, because this is just banter between us, even though both of us had heard the same thing from different people. It was just funny that it was just like we say it and we're just having a conversation. It's like, oh, it's 100% true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how these things go, though. Hey man, you know, websites. Yeah, those the websites. It's rough out there, man. You know, it's February, not a lot of news. I know clicks are tough. I mean, this kind of will even eventually get into the whole Halo's going to PS5 and Switch, Jed. Did you see? 343 said it was going to a new way and a new place to play. This 100% means the PS5. Lock it in. Breaking news, breaking report. Microsoft is going third party. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, man, that whole thing was fun.
Yeah. But before we get to all the topics, we got a whole bunch here. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button, especially that like button if you're enjoying the show already. But we want to talk about the games we've been playing, and I'll let you go first, Jez. What have you been spending your time with outside of World of Warcraft and outside of freaking Pokemon that you're trying to get me to play again, and it will never happen. It's not happening. I don't care. I don't care how much money you raise for charity. I don't care. You can be like, oh, dude, for the kids. I don't care. I don't care about the kids, okay? I'm not playing Pokemon Snap. I'm not playing World of Warcraft. I'm not playing Final Fantasy 14. You and PMS Jordan can stop conspiring in the DMs to get me to play any of this stuff. It's not happening. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, I haven't been playing too much this week. I've just been super busy with work. I played a little Nightmares 2. I think I talked about that last week before the embargo had lifted, but I presume you might talk about that a bit more. But I love Little Nightmares 2. I think it's awesome. Like the last couple of chapters are just kind of like, what the hell, man? I'm questioning my life now after this stuff. So yeah, that game is really wild in a sort of Inside kind of way. So if you liked Inside or Little Nightmares 1, my God, play Little Nightmares 2. It is just crazy. Some of the stuff in that game makes me question the sanity of the
people making it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
right?
like, how the hell do you come up with some of this stuff, man? Like the hospital level?
Ooh, the hospital level. Ugh.
Oh, that's so. That's the thing, though. It's like there's no like jump scares in the game whatsoever. It's just so like creepy. Like sort of gets really under your skin. That Little Nightmares 2. It's such a tremendous game. I absolutely loved it. I loved every minute of it, and it's like every segment there's something new and something fresh, and it never feels repetitive. Like every moment feels like a set piece almost. I just love that game so much. I really love that franchise. I want to see like I'm already looking forward to Little Nightmares 3. Like I really hope they. I mean, clearly they're gonna do Little Nightmares 3 after.
I mean, clearly.
You know,
no
spoilers.
hopefully. You know.
Yeah, man, ugh, creepy game. Maybe there needs to be a new genre that's like less horror and just more creepness. Because that game is just the epitome of creepiness. But so yeah, I played Little Nightmares 2. Really great game. People in chat are saying the medium or Little Nightmares 2, the geeky nerd. Little Nightmares 2 all the way for me. Like
which game's better?
I don't know.
I mean, is that what you're saying? Like what chat was saying? Like what game is better?
The geeky nerd said the medium or Little Nightmares 2.
Oh, Little Nightmares 2, 100%, all day and every day.
Yeah, I would say the same. Just it's I don't know. Like Tarsia is like got something really special on their hands with that game. Really special. But other than Little Nightmares 2, I've also been playing Oculus Quest 2 VR. So, I wrote some thoughts about Oculus Quest 2 and what the state of VR and whether Xbox should get into VR and stuff like that on Windows Central this week. Just a little editorial if anyone's interested. Have you ever used VR, Rand, at all?
Yes, I had PSVR and I played Moss, which I found incredible. Like my experience with VR was like, this isn't a gimmick. Well, it kind of is, but it isn't. I was a believer in VR after I tried it. After I played Moss, after I got motion sickness trying one of the other games, like I would just get like, I could play it for a bit, but then I get like this headache, and then I just wouldn't feel good. I actually threw up. I think I was playing like Until Dawn, Rush of Blood or something, where you're on like a roller coaster. And I remember like doing it, and I was just like, as I was going down the roller coaster, like I know I'm sitting still in my chair, but like this roller coaster is literally making me feel like I'm on a roller coaster, and like the knowledge that I'm sitting in a chair, but yet I feel like it's tricking me to feel like I'm moving. It didn't sit well with me. Like I just got up and went and threw up in the bathroom. And I was like, yeah, that's it for VR. I don't know, maybe it's the glasses are too tight on my head or something. Like I don't know. I didn't like the PSVR because of how obtrusive it was. You put it on your head, it's like all pressing on your head. You got all these wires coming off of you. Like I don't know. Like it wasn't. I could see why people love it because I loved Moss and I tried out even the Astrobot. Like I played a little bit of that, but like I just could not get over the headaches and being like motion sickness. So if they can fix that stuff and get rid of all the wires and make it maybe like a pair of glasses or something like that, then yeah. But as of right now, like it's I don't know, like it's not something I physically like want to do, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of my feelings about even the Quest 2. Like the Oculus Quest 2 is wireless, completely wireless, which is like the holy grail of VR supposedly. And it's really lightweight, it's super comfortable to wear, it feels balanced, and like I'm really impressed with the tech. Like also the audio stuff's really impressive. Like you don't have to stick anything in your ears and you can hear it, but the people around you can't hear it so loud. Like I don't know how they do that. It's like some dark magic or something. So like the Quest 2 is by far and away the best VR experience I've ever had. But even still, it's still sort of that whole, man, I feel ill. Like the disconnect between what you're doing in the game and what you're doing in real life just induces motion sickness. Like some games like Beat Saber, right? Are completely fine because the lightsaber goes right through the object and your hand movements match up with what you're doing in the game and you stand still the whole time. So when it's a game where what you're doing, it completely matches up with what you're experiencing. There's no motion sickness, and it feels very comfortable. But the problem is that doesn't make for like very interesting experiences sometimes. So like Beat Saber's like cool and it's like a good workout game, but I didn't really like, would I pay $300 for this? No. And so I tried like some more complicated games like Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, which is kind of like full-blown survival game in a zombie apocalypse. But like it's just motion sickness inducing because like when you stick a knife in a zombie's head, your arm gets stuck in the zombie's head, right? But you don't feel the zombie's head, obviously, because there's not a head there. So there's no force feedback on that. So because of that, it makes you just feel fatigued, and your brain's trying to figure out why there's a disconnect between what you do. It almost feels like being drunk when you're playing a VR game that is more sort of complicated. So I end up just feeling like I can't endorse this. It's so uncomfortable. And I just end up feeling like, man, I just rather just play my TV. And then I keep thinking like maybe like little kids who grow up with this tech might, be more used to it. And everyone always says to me, oh, you just have to get used to it. You just have to practice, blah, blah, blah. But I'm 35 this year and I've had motion sickness my whole life. Like no matter how many times I try and use my phone in the car, I still always end up feeling sick. So I don't know if you can train yourself out of feeling motion sickness. So I don't know. I don't know if it can go further than just being a gimmick. I really don't. But who knows, man? Who knows what can happen? I like the idea of it, and some games are kind of cool. Like Super Hot VR, it's really awesome. But it's fatiguing, and I ended up just like, trying it a couple of times and I'm just being over it,
Right, yeah.
I'm just not interested. But that's pretty much all I played this week. It's just off VR and Little Nightmares 2 for review and a bit of Pokemon, man.
Right.
Gotta play that Pokemon.
So before I get into what I've been playing, Face, he super chatted and says, "Is Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to Xbox this April? Will be a year the game has been out, not a peep about the game coming to Xbox." I see this whole talk has once again reared its head, and I actually had this as a topic because last podcast we talked about Final Fantasy 14. You remember, Jez? And you said, because there was a Final Fantasy 14 event about to take place, because they were going to unveil the new expansion. And there was, you said maybe because, the Xbox account liked something that might be possible, they would have finally announced the Xbox version, but they didn't. So we will definitely be talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake and if it's coming to Xbox or what we think about it, because Square Enix and Game Pass had a back and forth today, and that's got people convinced Final Fantasy VII Remake's about to get announced. But we will be talking about that in a little bit. Thank you, Face, for the support, buddy. I always appreciate it. Juniper says, "Hey guys, happy Lunar New Year. May good fortune be with you both. Now that we got Yakuza, Dragon Quest, and Kingdom Hearts, Phil, get us Persona now." Yeah, that does seem like Persona is like the last of the Japanese PlayStation exclusives not to come over. Would you agree with that, Jez?
Yeah, I guess it's almost anomalous at this point that it hasn't arrived yet, but
yeah. Well, I know like Neo is still only on PlayStation as well. So but for most people it was Yakuza. Like all the Yakuza games, they're now all now on Xbox. Even the Yakuza spin-off Judgment is coming. Dragon Quest is finally on Xbox. Kingdom Hearts, 3 was on Xbox, and then I think like a year later they released 1 and 2 and like all of the Kingdom Hearts games, which just also were announced finally coming to PC via the Epic Game Store for $60 a piece. $60 for like Kingdom Hearts like 1.8 and $60 for like Kingdom Hearts 2.8 and $60 for Kingdom Hearts 3, when I think you can literally get them for like combined for like $20 on PlayStation 4 or something.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah.
So man, Square Enix is such a strange company.
They are. They're very strange. They're very strange.
Well,
I think there was a time where I was like, nah, these games won't come to Xbox. And honestly, I think they wouldn't have if it wasn't for Game Pass. Clearly, Game Pass was one of the reasons why Yakuza came over, because they put them right into it. So Sega got a nice little check. And I think that probably has a lot of Japanese developers a little bit more interested in potentially putting them games on Xbox if they can get like money up front, because the stereotype is that Xbox gamers don't really buy Japanese content, which we've talked about on the show before, which is like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Publishers don't think Xbox gamers don't release their games on Xbox, or they don't buy them, so they don't put their games on Xbox. And if they do put their games on Xbox, it's years later when people already played it on PlayStation and or PC. So when they put it on Xbox, nobody buys it. And it's just like kind of perpetuates that stereotype that nobody buys Japanese content on Xbox. So I think there's
chicken and egg.
Yeah, I think there's a chance Persona makes its way to Xbox, and I wouldn't be surprised if, in maybe not necessarily Persona 5 right away, but maybe Persona 4 like Golden. Didn't that just come to PC? It's a little bit older Persona game. I wouldn't be surprised if like Persona 4 Golden comes to Game Pass, Microsoft cuts a check, and you start getting the Persona games on the platform. I think that's probably a possibility. Humdrum Dog says, do you think, or I think, Supergiant Games will come back? Supergiant Games, the makers of Hades and Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre. Now, they started off with Bastion, which was an Xbox Live Arcade game, and it did really well. And then they left Xbox. Their next games were exclusive to PlayStation 4, Transistor, and Pyre. And then they left PlayStation, and they did Hades on Nintendo Switch and PC, and Hades was nominated for all these Game of the Year awards. So do I think Supergiant Games will come back? Yes. I think Hades will be on Xbox by the end of the year, and it probably will debut in Game Pass. Because there's been kind of a shift towards indie games. Like in the beginning, if you recall, Jez, there was that platform parity that Xbox had, where if you shipped a game on PlayStation or Switch first and came to Xbox later, you had to do something else different with the game, add more content before Xbox would allow your game to be on the platform. And a lot of indie devs hated that. A lot of indie devs had a lot of problems with some of the practices that Microsoft did. And that's where a lot of some of the early resentment from, like, there wasn't a lot of indie titles on Xbox at the beginning. And then that restriction lifted. And with Game Pass, indies have kind of seen a resurgence, where on PlayStation, you see a lot of developers talking about how it's almost impossible to get traction on the PlayStation Store if you don't have some sort of deal with Sony themselves. And, with the rise of Nintendo Switch, pretty much all the indies went over there, and they sell incredibly well. So yeah, I do think Supergiant Games will make its return to Xbox, and Hades will be on the platform by the end of the year and on Game Pass. That's my prediction. Let's see what else we got here. Thank you guys, by the way, for all the support and being here. Me and Jez, it really means a lot to both of us. Mr. Squean says, who does Xbox owe more to? Seamus Blackley, Peter Moore, Don Matrick, Phil Spencer, or Squeans? Jez, who do you think Xbox owns more? Like, the father, Seamus Blackley, Peter Moore, the man who kind of shepherded it through, the 360. Don Matrick, the one who kind of took the baton from Peter Moore, made the 360 into a juggernaut before essentially shitting the bed and almost destroying Xbox. Or Phil Spencer, actually investing in studios, trying to turn Xbox into a giant gaming company, getting Microsoft as a company to look at gaming in a different way than they used to. I
think like, the cliche choice, but honestly, it's the fact that Phil Spencer managed to get Xbox elevated above Windows to the senior leadership table, like that cannot be understated as an achievement. Like, yeah, he's building on the success of the 360 era and stuff like that. But Phil was the missing piece of the puzzle in convincing the Microsoft CEO that gaming can be more than just a sort of side project for Xbox. That it's more than just a way to get people to use Windows. In a world where Windows is sort of can't grow anymore because it's already got a monopoly or whatever, like Xbox has outgrown Windows almost. So like for Phil to really explain that to Satya Nadella and stuff, and make the business case for gaming as a platform on Azure and stuff like that. I think without Phil, Xbox's days have been numbered. I really do think that.
Yeah, I do
So
think that too. But I did like what Peter Moore did with his time at Xbox as
yeah, I
well.
mean, you can't Xbox like we never got to that point if it wasn't for people like Seamus and Peter Moore and stuff like that. So it's obviously a team effort, and you can't attribute it to like any single person, right? But it's you know it's a hard question to answer really, because Phil himself would say like it's a team thing. It's not any single person. Like without like the network architects, there's no Xbox, and without the game devs, there's no Xbox. Without the people running it, there's no Xbox and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, I would say Peter Moore and then Phil with what he's done, and I would say if Don Matrick is your king, then you best just get out of here. You know what I mean? Like I know there's some people out there who think Donnie D, like yeah, they like Don Matrick because that was when the Xbox was on top of the world, and when Microsoft was throwing around its weight and getting a bunch of third-party deals, even though it was all predicated on the fact that Sony basically almost killed themselves. It was really nothing Xbox was doing at the time. It was just PlayStation launched too expensive and didn't have games for a while. And Don Matrick was throwing around some money, getting some third party exclusives. Like I even think back at the time with the Xbox 360, like they didn't even really have they had like what 4 or 5 first party studios making games, and it was roughly just like Halo and Fable. And Gears was being made by Epic, and they signed a lot of great games. That's where like I credit Peter Moore and Jay Allard, because they signed those early deals, and you had your Mass Effects, you had the BioShocks exclusive and the Saints Rows and the Elder Scrolls and all that stuff. Like all those deals were put in place then, and then Matrick comes in and kind of takes what they built, and then essentially they see this momentum of the Switch, or not Switch, the Wii, do the stupid camera, and then their biggest mistake is thinking essentially that gaming isn't important, and that's not what people actually want, and it's this like other thing, and it's an entertainment center, Xbox One, and we all see how that played out. So all I'm trying to say is screw Don Matrick. That's what I'm trying to say. Long way of saying that. Chris McGee says, whatever happened to the Microsoft and Facebook partnership? Do you think it's possible that Microsoft will partner with Facebook for the VR experience? Wasn't that specifically for like Mixer, Jazz, or something?
I mean, one thing you have to remember is Microsoft is like a minority shareholder in Facebook. So sometimes they collaborate on weird random things. Sometimes, I guess, Mixer is one of them. Like if Microsoft was going to partner with anyone for what happened with Mixer, the obvious choice was going to be Facebook, because they're the company that Microsoft's least in direct competition with, I guess. So, I mean, they'll work together when needs must. But the thing is about Oculus, it's sort of like it's a closed platform, I think if Oculus was a bit more open, like Steam, I think Microsoft be more willing to work with them. But Windows mixed reality obviously has been more closely aligned with Steam and for the Windows platform. Like Facebook wants to build its own separate platform completely, separate from Windows. So I don't know if Microsoft wants to go all in with Oculus, but who knows? We don't know. Microsoft's currently thinking about VR is that it's not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And part of me thinks they're probably right, but Microsoft does every now and then release information about the work they've been doing in VR. Like I got an email from them this week about new services for HoloLens, new services for Windows mixed reality, but it's always in a business context. It's never in a gaming context. So I don't know what their plans are. Do you remember that Conker game for HoloLens?
I remember that Conker game, yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Shout out to KY Bob for becoming the newest member of the channel. Thank you for the support, brother. Enjoy those lovely emotes. We appreciate it. And I think we have one more before we get on to basically some of the topics we want to talk about. This name here, I'll just say your name is Gaggins. Xbox is also important for building brand trust for Microsoft. For most young kids, playing an Xbox is their first introduction to Microsoft, and that's true. So, with that said, I want to talk briefly about Little Nightmares 2 because I agree with pretty much everything that Jess said. And, I recorded a clip. It's playing on screen right now. But it doesn't really do it justice because you don't have the sound. You don't have just some of the eerie things that you hear as you're just going along through the level that really add to the tension and the atmosphere that this game is building. Because one of the things this game does really well, Jez, is atmosphere and creating just like unsettling feeling for you, the player, that anything can happen at any point in time. And like, then you see those disgusting figures, the teacher, the hunter, the doctor, and like of how disgusting it is. And it just kind of puts you as a player on edge, especially when you have the chase sequences. Like, I love that. Like, this game, I'm not saying this game's perfect. It has its flaws. Some of the mechanics are a little bit, don't work properly all the time. And what I mean by that is, like, when you jump and you try to, like, hang on to a ledge or pull yourself up, you have to hit right trigger every single time you do that. And sometimes it just won't register that right trigger press. So sometimes during a chase sequence, considering it's like an insta-kill if somebody catches you, essentially, like when you press right trigger, you won't grab onto something and then you'll die. Fortunately, the respawns are pretty much instantaneous. So like you never, and since the checkpoints are fairly frequent, you never really have long to go to get back to where you were. It's like you usually spawn right there. And then once you figure out whether the combat, which they added in this game, like first game didn't have any combat, they added some combat in this one where you pick up a weapon, and it's not just as easy as like, oh, I'm going to go to this character and kill somebody. It's also kind of puzzle in the ways you do kill them. But I beat it over the course of 2 nights. First night, I played the first 2 chapters. Second night, I played the last 3 chapters. It's definitely way longer than the first game. I would put it about on par with it. It was just really nice to get back into that world, learn more about it, see different things than just the Maw, the ship that you're on in the first game. Have the companion with him so you could do little kind of co-op things, even though it's not like a second player can't play with you. And some of those levels are just so eerie and disgusting, and the sequences with the teacher and the doctor. There was a couple moments where I jumped because I wasn't expecting what was going on. So I love this. I love the Little Nightmares franchise. This game is fantastic. I'd probably give it like 8.5 or 9, depending on how I feel about it. If you like the first game, you need to play this one. If you're kind of on the fence about this game, you should try the first one. It's probably a bit cheaper because this one is $30. But for anybody who enjoys these kind of inside-like games, what do they call these? Like third person like side scrolling action puzzle platformers, you'll really enjoy Little Nightmares 2. The game's great, although it is not optimized for Series X, unfortunately. There is a next gen version coming end of the year ish, and for those of you that want to wait, you can. I mean, the current version runs at 30 frames, so maybe the next gen version runs at 60. The load times are pretty fast already. I mean, death respawn is like instantaneous, and maybe they bump up the resolution as well. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, if not 60 frames, I'm not playing it. And I understand that to a certain degree. Like almost every game I played on this system so far, and these next-gen systems have been 60 frames, and you start to get used to it. So when you go and play a game like Medium or a game like this, you definitely notice that it's 30 frames. But like, I'm not really sure Little Nightmares needs 30 frames. It just kind of, it just needed a little bit less jankiness when it comes to some of the mechanics. Like there's no achievement this time for beating the game without dying, which I did in the first game. And I was thinking, like, could I beat Little Nightmares 2 again without dying in one go? And it would be difficult just because of some of the mechanics of the game don't always register. And you need pinpoint, like, accuracy at times. And sometimes it just will fail. And that's a little bit disappointing. But I wholeheartedly recommend Little Nightmares 2. I love the game. And, if you do play it, let me know what you think about it on Twitter. Tag me. Be like, play Little Nightmares 2. Because a lot of people, when I talked about how awesome Katana Zero was, Jazz, a lot of people checked that game out because tons of people, DM'd me on Twitter or messaged me on it or, tweeted me talking about how amazing that game was and how they never would have played it if it wasn't because of me and you talking about it on the show, I mean, how you weren't even going to play it until I talked you into it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, that's true. KY Bob, he says, sorry guys, I could have sworn I was already a channel member. I don't know how that got past me. All fixed now. Much respect. Thank you, KY Bob, for the support, brother. So yeah, that's oh, and I also finished finally Hitman 3. Spent 62 hours in Hitman. Played through all of Hitman 1, all of Hitman 2, and all of Hitman 3, and I loved every single second of it. Hitman 3 is going to be in my top 5 for game of the year, for like without a shadow of a doubt. Whatever comes out this year, I can't imagine there being 4 games better than Hitman 3. Like Hitman 3 was absolutely incredible. I know some people don't like the Hitman franchise. I don't really care. My buddy Dealer Gaming was when it was announced was like, make something else. No, you make Hitman games because you're really good at it. And I know they're making the James Bond game in a couple years or whatever, but it was just so cool just playing all 3 Hitman games just one after the other in one single launcher and everything 60 frames, and oh my god, how gorgeous those levels were on the Series X. And I can't recommend Hitman enough. If you like stealth, you definitely have to play Hitman. I know, Jez, because I was kind of walking you through it because you were going to play Hitman, but you were like, how do I get the Hitman 1 maps and Hitman 3? And it was a little bit complicated, right?
Yeah, it's confusing. Like you have to download a specific license to access the older games within the launcher. Like, it's so cool the way they did that, though.
Yeah, it is really cool.
I'm gonna go through them myself at some point when I actually get time to sit down and play something. But yeah. I've never really given Hitman enough time. I really need to.
You can basically make Hitman into whatever you want. Like, I know some people don't like the mission stories, which basically give you waypoints to complete stuff, but like, you can turn off the mission stories. You can make it give you limited hints. You can turn it off completely. You can turn off Instinct, which is basically, Batman's detective vision where you can see people through walls. You can turn that off. You can turn the HUD off. You can basically play Hitman however you want, which is much help or as little help as you want. And then just have fun exploring the level and figuring out all the different and creative ways you can kill people. It's awesome. It's so good. Love it. I love Hitman. I love Hitman 3. So,
you think there'll be a Hitman 4?
If they do go back to Hitman, I mean, the ending of the game does leave room for there to be more Hitman games in the future, for sure. They obviously didn't close that off. But with them going to Bond, and then who knows whatever they do after that, I could see them like 10 years from now potentially doing, maybe bringing Hitman back if they have some more ideas, right? If they feel creatively like they can add something to Hitman. But I don't know, it does kind of just feel the way it ended and how it ended. It does kind of feel like this is the last one. And I won't spoil how it ended or whatever, but like it definitely kind of feels like this is Hitman's swan song. And
it's kind of like it's the IP's in a weird place too, because it seems like they have exclusive rights to develop Hitman games, but Square Enix have exclusive rights to publish the game. So I don't know, like they're both separate companies. So it's like this weird sort of place where I guess they want to make games that they actually own fully in the future, because you don't want to be making it. You don't want your studio to be defined by an IP that you don't necessarily own. Maybe I don't know.
yeah. Gamerholic says, "Hey guys, great show as always. Would gold conversion still work if I previously had Ultimate at full price? I never did any conversion." So how does that work, Jez, the whole conversion thing? Because we've talked about this before, and Microsoft has talked about it, but if you've had Ultimate, I don't think you convert again, right? It only works if you've never had Game Pass before, right? Or Game Pass Ultimate before?
Yeah, I think so. It's for new users only.
Yeah, it's for New Year's only. I mean, if you've never had Game Pass, what I did is you can convert from Xbox Live Gold into Game Pass Ultimate, and everything's 1-to-1, like 1 month, whatever you have like banked. If you have 6 months of Xbox Live Gold, that would give you 6 months of Ultimate, and you can bank up to 3 years. So what I did a couple years ago when they first introduced Ultimate was I bought up to 3 years of Xbox Live Gold, so when I converted to Game Pass Ultimate, I had 3 years of Game Pass Ultimate. But I believe it only works if you haven't converted. If you've already converted, I don't think it does.
Yeah, it was like an introductory sort of offer thing. I believe.
one of those first time things. So, anyways, that's what we've been playing. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button, all that good stuff, and we're gonna get into the topic. We're gonna go back to the Final Fantasy thing because I feel like, since Face gave us a super chat talk about it, we'll talk about it right now. Now, Final Fantasy 14 had a event where they announced a new expansion, and it's not coming to Xbox, Jez. It's coming to PlayStation 4, PC, and they announced the PlayStation 5 version, which is having a open beta in April, right? Yeah. Even though Phil Spencer himself have talked about getting Final Fantasy 14 to come to Xbox all the way back in, November of 2019? It's still not there yet. Now, does that have anything to do with, Xbox game, or Xbox still, as of right now, you need Xbox Live Gold to play the free-to-play games? Because I believe Final Fantasy 14 is free-to-play up to level 30, right? And then after that, you have to pay for it. So maybe the announcement comes a little bit later, or maybe something's going on between Square Enix and Xbox, because as we talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake, the exclusivity ends in about 3 weeks for that game. The exclusivity for Final Fantasy VII Remake ends on March 3rd. And there's is that
something that's known or rumored?
That's literally on the box of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Literally says it on the box. When it came out last year, right? And there is a Final Fantasy VII concert that is happening, I believe, next week or maybe in 2 weeks or something, where there might be some announcements regarding Final Fantasy VII Remake. So a lot of Xbox fans are expecting Final Fantasy VII Remake to come to Xbox, because why not? Like, even though nobody's said anything, whether Xbox or Final Fantasy, people just assumed years up, Final Fantasy VII is going to come to the system. I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for Final Fantasy VII Remake to come to Xbox. I have this feeling that during this event, they're going to announce a PS5 and PC version. And the PS5 will probably, you'll have to pay for again. I don't think it'll be a free upgrade. And it'll have, like, you know, new DualSense features and all that stuff and 60 frames and, you know, pretty much be the PC version. And I know that's when a lot of Xbox fans are probably hoping they're going to announce it, but I don't think they will. Now, I would love to be wrong. Like, if next week or the week after it comes out and, hey, we're announcing Final Fantasy VII Remake for Xbox and it's coming with the PS5 and, you know, the PC version, I would be like, hell yeah, that's great, because I didn't finish it on the PlayStation 4 because I got really into Warzone, and I was like, you know what? I'll just play it on my Xbox Series X when it comes out, presumably in April, right? But we're 2 months away from April. The exclusivity is up in a couple weeks. And it's like, well, if it doesn't get announced for the Xbox Series X, I guess I'll just buy the PS5 version and finish the game. But the reason why also this came up again was because Square Enix and the Xbox Game Pass account were tweeting back and forth with each other. So a lot of people are like, well, why would they tweet each other back and forth? And why are they talking about Cosmo Canyon in Final Fantasy VII? You know, because, well, you played Final Fantasy VII. You know what Cosmo Canyon is, right?
Yeah. It's Red 13's home.
Red 13's home's like, why are they tweeting about this? What could it mean? Does it mean Final Fantasy, you know, does it mean the announcement's coming soon? And there is some back and forth between them. Even though Final Fantasy VII is already on Xbox Game Pass, the original, and they just added Final Fantasy XII, a lot of people are hoping that this interaction on Twitter means that Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming. So I've given
something weird about Final Fantasy XII on Xbox Game Pass.
What's weird about it?
It hit Game Pass globally yesterday. Or whenever it did. I don't know the specific day. I don't even know what day of the week it is. But a day later, Final Fantasy XII was removed from Xbox Game Pass in Japan.
Why is that?
I don't know. Shenanigans, I guess. Just basically the whole relationship between Xbox and Square Enix is so strange. Like the way that like Xbox liked that tweet about Final Fantasy 14 showcase got everyone's hopes up that finally Final Fantasy 14 will come to Xbox. But again, we are disappointed. I asked PR about this and they just don't comment about Final Fantasy 14 on Xbox. It's like it's just a thing that just doesn't seem to be happening. Like, it's so strange. The whole thing around Square Enix and Xbox is so strange. Like, you just can't depend on any Square Enix game to come to Xbox. But then like they do all these buddy things on Twitter. Like we get the crumbs, you know. We get Square Enix's crumbs and stuff. We get their old games. We get like Final Fantasy VIII upscaled on Game Pass. Big whoop, you know. And it just kind of sucks, you know, for Xbox fans. The Square Enix is sort of, that's the way the relationship works. But it's all money at the end of the day. You know, if Microsoft was throwing the same kind of money at Square Enix that Sony is, then I'm sure things would be very different. But
so what is so Gamerholic says, thanks guys, almost wasted 3 years on gold. Well, we're glad that you didn't waste your money. What do you think about Final Fantasy VII Remake? Do you think it's going to be announced? And people are telling me that this event is actually tonight or something in Japan, so maybe we'll find out tonight. So what if you were to make a prediction, like how you're feeling? Final Fantasy VII Remake, is that going to be announced alongside the PS5 and PC version, or do you think potentially Sony bought another year of exclusivity and they're not bringing Final Fantasy VII Remake to Xbox, or Final Fantasy VII Remake won't come to Xbox until Part 2? What do you think's going on here, if you had to make a guess?
If I had to make a guess with like zero information, I would say I don't expect Final Fantasy VII Remake to be announced for Xbox. Could be wrong, but I just highly doubt it, just given how Square Enix and Xbox's relationship seems to be. Um, it's just the way it is, you know. Clearly, Sony and Square Enix are very close right now, and you know, it's just the way it is, you know.
It definitely seems like Sony's doing everything in their power to make it seem like Final Fantasy is a PlayStation game or PlayStation brand exclusive, because you had the 1-year deal with 7, which may not come to Xbox, and it's going to be on PC. But then Final Fantasy 16, there's Final Fantasy 16, a game that me and Jazz. So if you recall, back before Sony had their June showcase, right? All the way back in like when we were talking about it in May, we're like, Final Fantasy 16 is going to be a PlayStation exclusive, right? And I remember Reset Era like quoting us, and of course, with a lot of these rumors and stuff, they always quote you, and I'm just chopped liver. They never care about what I have to say. Even though we both literally said we had heard from people we trust that Final Fantasy 16 was going to be exclusive. It was always, Jess Gordon of Windows Central says blah, 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 right? I'm just a YouTuber who just makes stuff up, apparently. The thought process there was like, okay, that'd be a 1-year exclusive. Final Fantasy 16 may never come to Xbox. That might be a full lifetime exclusive, because then the other Project Athia game, that's 2 years. So maybe Sony's just throwing money around to make sure that anything Final Fantasy is just only associated with PlayStation. And
it certainly seems that way.
Yeah. So, well, I guess we'll find out soon. Maybe if that concert's tonight or tomorrow, and they announce the PC PS5 version, you'll have your answer. And if they announce an Xbox Series X version, then Xbox fans are gonna be happy. But it's just like, you don't announce that Xbox version, there'll be a lot of pissed off Xbox fans, because it's like you're adding all these older games to Game Pass, and it's like you're not getting remake. Well, that's a big miss for Xbox. Like Xbox already, you don't have Persona, which is a problem. And you finally got Yakuza games, which is great. Now you're not getting new Final Fantasy games. That's a problem, because you don't want games to skip your platform. And I understand Sony's paying for it, so there's really nothing you can do there. But then, like, one of my buddies, who's basically essentially been playing nothing but Genshin Impact, I was just thinking, like, man, that's a miss for Xbox not to have Genshin Impact on the platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is true.
And it's like, those are things you don't want to happen. Like, you want as many games on your platform as you possibly can get. And I don't know if it's just because of the developers, or they have no interest, or if it's one of those things we talked about earlier about, Xbox gamers don't play Japanese games, or whatever. But I think Genshin's Chinese, right? I mean, I could be wrong.
Genshin Impact is your good old pals Tencent.
Oh, Tencent, of course it is. So,
yeah, I think like it'd be like coming back to our previous discussions about Sega and stuff. It'd be like potentially if Sony wants to make Final Fantasy associated with the PlayStation brand. Like if you pick up Sega, you can make Yakuza and Persona associated with the Xbox brand. It's that kind of tit for tat sort of thing. Maybe they should just buy Capcom and give me a new Breath of Fire. That'd be rad. Do you ever play Breath of Fire, Ran?
No, I've never played Breath of Fire. I'm sorry, Josh.
Breath of Fire is fire.
Isylar says, was the deal with Final Fantasy being on Game Pass permanent? Final Fantasy 15 was removed a few weeks ago. I think those deals were just a year. Most Game Pass deals that you can kind of look at and track from when they were added to when they're removed are usually like a year. And it definitely seems like the Final Fantasy ones are on for a year. And I think Microsoft and the developer, once that time comes up, they can renegotiate and have it on longer. Like if a game does really well, like Descenders or Human Fall Flat and games like that, like they can then be like, oh, it did really well for our game, and blah 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 blah. Here's some more money, keep it on the platform. So with those games, it's probably just a year, and they're gone. So if you want to play the older Final Fantasy games, you got about a year to do it. So get on it. Aaron says Microsoft needs to stop being nice and pay the money already and stop letting this happen. I don't necessarily know if it's about paying the money to get the game on the platform. It's just Sony's paying a bunch of money to keep it off Xbox.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like it's almost like you're holding Microsoft to ransom at that point. It's like if Sony's paying for exclusivity, then it's sort of it incentivizes. The only way you can counter that is to pay for exclusivity as well. Microsoft's like sort of stopped doing that because of the backlash. It's funny, if Microsoft does it, they get a media backlash. If Sony does it, it's business as usual, So like Microsoft stopped doing the timed exclusivity thing because of the backlash. But I suppose that comes back to the comment about Microsoft being too nice, I think they should just do it. I think they should just, get competitive and start buying up exclusivity, on third party games. I think they should do it. Why not? Screw it, just buy the whole studio and make the whole franchise exclusive. I suppose that's the ballsy move, isn't it? Like what they're doing with Bethesda. But that's the world we live in, It's we come into this age of platform exclusivity, like Netflix pulling Star Wars off. Disney pulling Star Wars off Netflix and stuff. And do you remember that whole thing, like that whole controversy? It was like it's almost forgotten now. And Disney Plus is about to hit 100 million subscribers. 100 million subscribers on Disney Plus. I think they're at like 97 million.
It's crazy that basically it got up to 96 million on the back of 2 seasons of Mandalorian and a bunch of right? Like because they had like nothing for a whole. It was Mandalorian they launched with, which was great. Then they had nothing until Mandalorian season 2, and now they're rolling with WandaVision, and they're rolling with Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But they're already up to almost 100 million. But that's just the power of IP and everything, right? That's the power of Star Wars, Marvel, and all the Disney Pixar movies and stuff.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It just goes to show how important content is and how important exclusive content is, which is the whole mentality behind buying up Bethesda and whoever else they buy up next. So, one step at a time, I guess.
One step at a time, indeed. Windia Santoso says, the developers of Genshin Impact have said they have no interest in making an Xbox edition. Yeah, I recall reading that, and it's a shame that they basically came out and says, nah, no Xbox for us, which means they feel that it's not worth their time or effort or money and resources to make an Xbox version. So, yep. What else we got here? We have one from Windia again. The issue is about Xbox in Japan. It's not the number of consoles sold in Japan. It's getting the interest of Japanese developers to build for Xbox. That is true.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think after Bethesda, I would really like to see Microsoft invest in a Japanese dev or publisher, because I think that would show the Japanese market and developers, and it would also give Xbox a base to build and grow in Japan and become like a legitimate source of gaming in Japan. Because right now it's just this obscure sort of thing, Like, I really do think that would be awesome for everyone on the Xbox platform. It would be bring Japanese games to Westerners, and also it would bring Microsoft cash to Japan.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be cool.
Isyler says, do you know anything about Final Fantasy 12 being removed from Game Pass in Japan after a day? Also, haven't asked for a while, but how are the Ferrari payments going? I think Jez already talked about the Game Pass in Japan thing. My Ferrari payments, I don't. Come on. I know Jez talks about the YouTube millions, but it's rough, man. Like it's the new year. You know what that means? YouTube goes out of their way not to show people your videos, and ad rates are basically nothing at this point in time in the year. So If I had a Ferrari, they'd be basically repoing it right now. I'd have the guy knocking on my door to get it back because I wouldn't be able to make the payments. So, Tony Art says, with Sony locking huge franchise away from Xbox, Microsoft should lock every single Bethesda IP from Sony besides the MMOs. Go for the throat. Well, I mean, that's what we've, talked about with the whole Bethesda thing, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more because we have to, tell people what the Vault is. But yeah, a lot of fans, want Xbox to basically, I don't know, keep the Bethesda games exclusive, to kind of stick it to PlayStation fans or stick it to PlayStation, and give people a reason to get an Xbox or whatever. So yeah, Adam says, shouldn't Xbox just increase the budget and size of Tango Gameworks? Seems like they have to go out and get a second studio and make RPGs. You know what they should do, Jez? They should buy Sega and just have Sega as, okay, Sega is now basically Xbox Game Studios in Japan as like the forefront dev, and like work from there.
I agree completely.
That's what they should do, but who knows if they will. Tango Gameworks is great. They come with the purchase of Bethesda, but they need to convince a lot of Japanese developers that to make games and put their stuff over. And if you had a huge company like Sega basically being the front for Xbox Game Studios in Japan, that would go a long way. So,
I think I'm really interested in how gamers responded to Dragon Quest on Game Pass, because I always see a lot of people on Twitter talking about Yakuza Like a Dragon and stuff like that, but it'd be interesting to see how many normies, quote unquote, actually play Yakuza and Dragon Quest, even if they're in Game Pass, because I suppose Microsoft would use that data to then present to Japanese devs and be like, look, our audience do want these games, but I guess we'll never know.
Okay. What else we got here? Someone wants to know, Jez, what's your comment on Clobrill's tweet mean?
I think he's talking about, I said, we ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
What is Clobrill tweeted? What did he tweet now? He tweeted about people not understanding the future of Xbox first party games and stuff like that. And I said basically, you ain't seen nothing yet. Man, some of the plans I've seen for that are I'm not talking about 2 years out, I'm talking 3-4 years out. Some of the ideas and plans I've seen from internal.
You do realize that whatever you say here, some website is going to pick this up with the clickbait headline. And they're going to run with it, and then I'm going to have to make a video about what was said in my own podcast. So you know what? So we're going to line this up for all you websites out there that are listening. All right, just start over again. What did you mean with Clobrill tweeted out, and you tweeted, man, you ain't seen nothing yet. Let's get the articles written, baby. Come on, let's go. Start it up. Clickbait it. Let's go, Jazz. Go. Come on. What?
Well, take it with a pinch of salt, But so some of the plans I've seen that Microsoft have for games that are 4 years out, 5 years out, of more ambitious than what we've seen in the AA era, should we call it?
Double A or triple A?
The double A era, as in Sea of Thieves in its launch state and State of Decay 2 in its launch state. The Don Matrick, Terry Myson era, you Crackdown 3 and stuff like that. But some of the plans I've seen for games that are several years out, which may not even get made. They may not even get made, but they're incredibly ambitious, big budget sort of projects. So I'm really excited for the future of Xbox, put it that way. I just hope some of the stuff that I've heard about, I just hope it actually comes true and actually gets made and isn't just doesn't escape the prototype stage. But there's some cool stuff they're planning.
How cool?
Very cool. The kind of cool that you would need hundreds of millions of dollars to make.
Hundreds of millions of dollars to make these games, these projects. That sounds like big games.
They're big, yeah, big games.
Wow.
You know, it's just it's a level of ambition that I've just not seen from Microsoft before. You know, but again, they might not even get made. They might just be prototypes. It might just be a case of like Microsoft gets cold feet and decides they're too ambitious. But I don't know. I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic. I'm very excited about the future. But I can't even imagine what 5 years from now looks like. You know, it's funny. Like, could you imagine when the Xbox One launched in 2013 that we'd be sitting here talking about this kind of stuff now? Like, it doesn't feel like a long time ago, but it really was 2013. Like, it's 8 years ago. Like, what? That's crazy. 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the time gone, man? But I don't know. It'll be 4 years will have gone past, like, in a blink of an eye, probably, and then we'll be sitting there talking about how we talked about these plans.
Will we still be doing Xbox 2 in 4 or 5 years from now?
We better be.
We better be. Yeah.
We better be.
Yeah. So everybody who's listening, if you're a member of those websites, make sure you properly credit this. This is Rand and Jez's Xbox 2 podcast. I want to be in the byline, damn it. I won't stand for this. So Jez is saying that there's a level of ambition that he's never seen from Xbox before, and that people just don't even know. They can't even fathom. What is going to be going on. Love that. Yeah. Can't wait to read the articles tomorrow about it.
I just hope it comes to fruition. But
yeah, me too.
I don't think you even make those kind of plans unless you have the ambitions to match. So I'm excited. I am excited.
Shout out to iSidelar18 for becoming the newest member of the channel. Thank you for supporting the journey and enjoy your emotes. Leaving Flame says, have Tango by Yoko Taro and conquer Japan. Mr. Miracle says, it's still a rare achievement to beat Ori, Gears, Highbusters, etc. Why would Microsoft feel incentive to invest in nice RPGs they know their fan base? Well, I mean, the thing about those is like they're all on Game Pass, so anybody can try them. They don't necessarily have to finish them. So that's the whole rare achievement thing. I mean, it's almost a rare achievement to beat the campaign of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 because anybody can play it because it's free to play. It's just the amount of players, you know what I mean? Friendly Neighborhood Blue Shell says, brought an 80% beat Dragon Quest. Awesome. Hope you really enjoyed the game. And yeah, that's we're all caught up except for Graham here. Would you like to see Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Remastered be released? So it's interesting. They talked about that in their investor call, Jez. They asked them about any remasters or remakes for any of the Grand Theft Auto earlier games, like 3 and 4, Vice City, San Andreas. And he didn't outright say no. He said he would leave any announcements up to Rockstar. Which kind of is adding, speculation to the fuel to the fire that, potentially Rockstar might remaster 3, Vice City, and San Andreas at some point to kind of bridge releases until 6. What do you think?
I want them to remake GTA 1 and 2, man. Screw 3D. I just want top down. I want top down GTA. Man, I played those games to death when I was a kid.
Played it to death.
Just driving a tank in GTA 2 for like hours, running cars over. That was the height of entertainment for me as a kid. But yeah, I don't know, man. Remakes and remasters are obviously big money. Like everyone's doing it. Like, we've got Mass Effect coming. We've got we've had a boatload of remakes and remasters over the years. So Grand Theft Auto Classic trilogy being remade, remastered, and republished would make an absurd amount of money. It'd make an absurd amount of money. So, yeah, I imagine that's the thing that's coming.
Okay, all right. Let's see what else we got here. You want to talk about Halo going to the PlayStation 5 and Switch?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
So this also is a tweet. I think you replied. Well, maybe you didn't reply to Clober or whatever. But so when we ended the podcast last week, I think on Saturday or whatever, there was a blog post over at Halo Waypoint that was talking about flighting. You know, the Halo Master Chief Collection flighting that they do. They put out new tweaks and things for insiders to try out before they, bring them to everybody. And for some reason, because of a single line of a bullet point in an article about flighting, where they said, there's going to be potentially a new way and a new place to play, this got the industry's websites all up in a tizzy. I saw countless articles talking about 343 teases Master Chief Collection coming to new platform, right? You had of course people on Twitter being spectacularly wrong, like, lock it in, it's coming to PlayStation 5. Chief is looking good in blue, right? Master Chief's coming to the Nintendo Switch. It's a done deal. Breaking news, breaking report, right? All this stuff. Everybody's like, yes, Master Chief, finally coming to PlayStation and Switch. And I made a video about it, as I tend to do. And if anybody, I feel like if anybody watches my videos and is like, over the course of years, when things happen, when leaks and rumors happen, when dates for events, like when I give that information and I'm right about it, I think people kind of put in the back of their minds like, yeah, Rand's usually right about all this stuff. So what did I say in my video, Jez? I said, while it would be cool to maybe potentially you could see a Halo coming to a Switch at some point, which I still think is possible at some point down the road. I'm not ruling out Halo coming to the Switch. I think it'll be never on PlayStation 5, but I was like, what they're talking about is this. A new way to play is going to be a custom game browser, a custom in-game game browser, and the new place to play is going to be one of the maps from Halo Online. The Russian Halo Online game that people that only was available obviously in Russia. They had some new maps that they built. I'm like, watch, it's going to be a custom game browser and a map from Halo Online, and that's going to be the two things. And it's not this huge clickbait thing about, oh, maybe it's coming to the Epic Game Store or PlayStation 5 or whatever, right? And what did it end up being? A custom game browser and a map from Halo Online.
It's funny because, like, I had heard that Microsoft was experimenting with standalone Xbox games for Android and iOS, because, like, for example, Apple won't allow Xbox Game Pass, cloud streaming, gaming, xCloud stuff, whatever the brand is. They won't allow Xbox Game Pass game streaming on Apple Store because Apple considers it a competing storefront, and they blocked it. So one way Microsoft could get around this is by putting Halo as an app, just Halo as an app, onto the Apple Store, and then it runs through xCloud or whatever. So like that's one thing I've heard that Microsoft has been working on. So like you could go on your phone or your iPad and buy like Xbox games standalone that are run through xCloud. Like that's something I've heard they've been looking at. Similarly to how like if you buy Resident Evil 7 on Nintendo Switch, it's actually streaming from the cloud. It's not native. That's what. So I was thinking like maybe it was that, but coming to PlayStation, I don't think that's ever gonna happen, ever.
Well,
it'll be a cold day in hell.
So Kratopsy says, but seriously, don't you think their messaging at Microsoft should have been more clear to both avoid such situations and for the consumers to know what's going on? I mean, I get what you're trying to say, and Microsoft's messaging has been lacking, but this is a update about flighting, which specifically is to people who are in the insiders of Halo, who are going to be looking forward to the updates for it. If Microsoft is going to announce Halo is going to switch, it wouldn't be in a blog post on Halo Waypoint that's buried deep. It would be what they kind of did with Forza Horizon 4, an article on Xbox Newswire saying Forza Horizon 4 is coming to Steam on March 9th. This wasn't that. This was just like, hey, here's all the things that you know, Halo insiders you can test out. It's just that, you know, the way the video game news is right now, there's kind of dry. So when you read that stuff and you want to, you know, make an article about it, you got to clickbait it, because nobody wants to click on an article that's like, you know, that's like Halo, you know, 343 gives update about Halo, right? But people will click on an article that says 343 teases Halo Master Chief Collection coming to PS5, right? Because people be like, oh, damn, I want to know, did they really? What's going on? So in this situation, this isn't a problem. This isn't Microsoft's messaging that's an issue. This is an issue of websites needing clicks and clickbaiting everything to high heavens to drive people in. And it should have been apparent to anybody with, you know, any semblance of logic that they're talking about something within Halo Master Chief Collection itself, not, you know, new platforms, because you're talking about a flighting update. Like, Halo doesn't even exist in any form on any of these other platforms, so how would it get a flighting update? It doesn't even exist. You know what I mean? So it's like, the only thing it could be was exactly what I said it was going to be, and that's why people should pay attention to me more and watch my videos, because I know what's going on.
Is that right?
Sometimes I do. Anyways, but the other thing that they mentioned recently, which this might make you sad, I know it made Addict sad, was basically Halo Wars 2 is done, and so's the Halo Wars franchise for the most part. What do you think about that, Jez?
Yeah, they kind of said never say never, but mostly it does sound like Halo Wars is over. It's not ultimately a surprise, I guess, given that RTS is a relatively niche genre. Halo Wars was too simplistic to attract the core RTS fan. But at the same time, Microsoft's looking at RTS a lot lately with Age of Empires, which has more engagement than it's ever had ever. Age of Empires is really growing on PC, and obviously Age of Empires 4 is coming out and stuff like that. So I personally think that I don't think the franchise is dead. I think they will revisit it because, you know, it's a brand people know, and I think there is a load of potential there if they actually make it, give it more depth. It doesn't have enough depth, I think, for a lot of RTS fans. It's too simplistic, and they've always sort of like have this sort of uncanny valley where they have to make it accessible for controller play and stuff like that. But now we've got like full-blown keyboard and mouse support on Xbox. There's kind of no excuse, you know. So yeah, I would assume that it'll come back someday, but not in the near future. But it's a shame because I quite enjoyed it personally, and obviously it's given us Atriox that's gonna no doubt be a big part of Halo Infinite. So
Atriox is going to be a big part of Halo Infinite. So thank you for Halo Wars 2 for bringing that in. By the way, because he was a really cool part of that game. Unfortunate for anybody that likes Halo Wars or the franchise, but you know, they said never say never. So 5 years from now, we might get a Halo Wars 3, but who knows? So I figured we got to talk about this whole Vault situation, right, with Microsoft and Bethesda. Did you write about this? Did anybody at Windows Central cover this whatsoever?
Yeah, I think Matt Brown covered it. The Vault subsidiary where ZeniMax will live or something, but apparently it's only temporary.
Well, yeah, I mean that's how the these sort of mergers work. But there definitely seemed like a lot of people that have no understanding of how mergers and acquisitions work and anything how it meant. I saw people talk about how this meant that Vault was going to be a new subscription service that Microsoft was going to sell with Bethesda games inside of it, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, that's how Microsoft is going to acquire Bethesda in a reverse triangle merger, where Microsoft creates this subsidiary called Vault, and then Vault basically merges into and with Bethesda, and then Vault is gone, and the only thing left is Bethesda, and Microsoft then owns Bethesda. But it's not a direct merger where like Microsoft would absorb Bethesda. It's just like Bethesda will be a subsidiary of Microsoft. Now, we are expecting essentially what? We are expecting Bethesda to be its own separate entity within Xbox, but not under Xbox Game Studios, right?
Yeah, I think the way I'm imagining it is that it'll be like kind of how Activision Blizzard is, integrated but separate brands. Like the way Blizzard runs things is very different to the way Call of Duty runs things. Although it is increasingly becoming very scarily similar. But I think Microsoft, so far, they've pretty much seemed to let studios basically do their own thing. And I think like that's basically what they'll do. Because unlike Activision Blizzard, Microsoft has, the subscription service to run. And the whole idea is, having a diverse array of content for Game Pass, which is ultimately what the goal is here. So yeah, I think they'll be separate entities, and I think we could even see like a continuation of things like QuakeCon and maybe even Bethesda having its own like E3 presence, because Bethesda, historically has done its own shows. Like physically, I'm not sure Microsoft, like if we ever get back to having regular E3s again, Microsoft physically wouldn't be able to fit all of Xbox Game Studios and all of Bethesda stuff into one show unless it was like 3 hours long.
Sure, they could. 100% they could.
What? How? If like every trailer's 20 minutes, 20 seconds long?
I mean, I don't see. I had this discussion with a couple friends, and it came down. Okay, so like you have Xbox Game Studios, which is run by Matt Booty, and there are 15 studios, correct? Well, 16, I guess, if you add World's End, right? And also Xbox Global Publishing, correct? Right? Am I right on that?
Yep.
Okay, and then you have Bethesda, which they'll report up to Phil, whoever's going to be running Bethesda. Whoever's the Matt Booty counterpart is, I don't know who that's going to be. They'd report up to Phil. They're separate than Xbox Game Studios, but they're still Xbox. They're going to keep their identity intact. It's going to be Bethesda. Maybe even ZeniMax. Maybe they still keep the whole ZeniMax Bethesda thing. I don't know. Because I've had this conversation where it's like, well, wouldn't you want... imagine a situation, and we've already seen where like the EU is going to rule on the merger and the acquisition by March 5th. Maybe they do it even earlier than that. And once the deal closes, people are saying, like, wouldn't it be cool if Bethesda had their own event separate from Xbox Game Studios? So say sometime in May, you get a 45-minute Bethesda presentation where like Todd Howard debuts Starfield and gives a 15-minute demo like he did for Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, where Machine Games can come out there and showcase Wolfenstein 3. Like Arcane can come out there and show Dishonored 3 or whatever other projects they have, right? And then a couple months later, Microsoft can do Xbox Game Studios, and like, here's Forza Motorsport, here's Forza Horizon 5, here's Avowed, and here's Fable, and here's Psychonauts 2, and all the games coming from their first party run by Matt Booty, and any, indie titles or maybe third-party deals that they have. That's the type of stuff, right? You're talking about that. Like, you would like that setup? Because you don't think they could put Bethesda games in a conference that is alongside Xbox first party?
I mean, they can, but I don't know if they need to. And also, there's a school of thought that like a 90-minute conference is too long.
Sure,
Um,
there is that thought, but I think
and
what
also, like there's potentially like some, I don't know, aspects that don't necessarily cross over. Like Bethesda typically likes to showcase mobile games at its show, Fallout, Shelter, Elder Scrolls Blades, and stuff like that. I don't think those would fly in an Xbox showcase. I don't know. I don't know.
no, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just imagining a Bethesda thing. And you're right, Bethesda used to have an E3 press conference and there's a lot of stuff there. But I also think Microsoft is going to have to start messaging and showing that Bethesda means Xbox. And having a separate press conference doesn't really do that any good, right? Because if Bethesda is Xbox, you would want to be like, okay, here's an Xbox game showcase. Here's Fable. Here we got some gameplay. Here's Avowed. We got some gameplay. Boom, here's Starfield, right? Okay, here's Wolfenstein 3. Boom, we're back to next game is Hellblade 2. Boom, next game is Dishonored 3. Like, it gives a sense that these are Xbox games, and Bethesda is just an Xbox, studio making games for Xbox. But if you keep it separate, it just reinforces the notion that they're completely different, and you don't build that whole Bethesda is Xbox, Xbox is Bethesda thing that I think they do want to build in the future. Now,
yeah, but Bethesda's also a very PC-oriented dev too.
Well, so's Xbox. I mean,
yeah, I guess so. But Xbox almost like doesn't want you to know that.
okay.
I don't know. I don't know if they keep them separate on that basis. So like people don't think, oh, these games are like console exclusives now. But maybe they.
So that's the other thing I was gonna say is that if you have Bethesda separate, to me, and this may be to me, that means your plans are for them to be multi-platform.
Yeah, I guess it's something for people who are paid a lot of money to figure this stuff out. With like, what do you do? I suppose ultimately, what Bethesda want is what they'll probably do. Like if Todd says, "Yeah, I kind of want my own show," I kind of, stuff like that. I can't see them just saying no. I could just see them saying, "Yeah."
Well, it depends on what level of independence they have. I mean, granted, they're going to be answering up to Phil, and Phil's the boss. But if they really are about like, hey, we want to keep the studios and the culture of what Bethesda is all about, and that includes having our own showcase, Phil may be like, okay. But if also you're trying to, because okay, like me, you, and everybody listening to this podcast, everybody's gonna know, okay, Xbox owns Bethesda, but like, does the common casual gamer know that? Does the person who really loves Elder Scrolls know at this point that Bethesda is Xbox and Xbox is Bethesda? No, and how do you actually start doing that? You need to start messaging that. So when do these people actually pay attention? Well, they normally pay attention when you have these big press conferences. And if the big press conference is just, here's Xbox first-party studios games and nothing from Bethesda, a lot of people will be like, who only pay attention at that point are just going to be like, oh, nothing's really changed for Xbox. And if Bethesda has their own show, you don't really equate that Bethesda is Xbox. But if you did a show and everything was just interspersed, here's Fable, here's Starfield, here's Halo, here's Wolfenstein 3, then you start building it into customers' minds that they're one and the same. Even though Bethesda's separate, it's all just Xbox, and all these things will be on Game Pass. I mean, I'm not a marketing guy, but like I think that's pretty basic. You need to kind of combine those two in people's eyes. So I guess this kind of goes into this Xbox gaming event that was announced today. Well, more of a Microsoft gaming event. Do you know anything about it that Phil Spencer is keynoting?
No, I think it's mostly developer oriented. Like I saw some outlets use the headline "the first gaming event"
for
Xbox, and I was like, that's a bit That's a bit of a reach.
Are they talking more about like tech and like Azure and how that and like how that stuff is gonna drive gaming in the future and things like that? Not necessarily like, oh, here's a new trailer for Perfect Dark or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just going to be like, AI as your machine learning, boring stuff, unless you're like into that stuff, I guess.
Are you into
Like
that stuff? Will you be covering it?
I will watch it. Yeah, I'm into that stuff, but it's not going to be game announcements. They're pretty firm on that fact. I might try and land an interview with some people working on that tech though, because it sounds pretty cool. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be. They're not going to announce any games there or anything, So the first game event, I think not.
So when do you think we actually get the first gaming event? Like, I know this is an event, Phil speaking, and it is called like what AI and gaming event at Microsoft. But like for what people want to see, what I want to see, what you want to see, what everybody in chat wants to see, gameplay of these new titles, new announcements, Bethesda games. When do you think that actually is going to happen?
Maybe we just have a regular E3, man. Maybe we just have an actual E3 week.
Do you think Xbox is going to be a part of E3? Because I know there's talk that E3 wants to come back, that they're putting something on. Do you see Microsoft once again kind of doing that, or do you think they're going to do their own thing?
Microsoft supports the ESA generally, so I would expect entirely that Microsoft would support E3 if they try and do like a digital E3 event. I reckon Xbox would support, but maybe they'd support like in a limited capacity and then have their own event some other time. I suppose. The thing is, there's a lot of pressure. You put a lot of pressure on the developer, more pressure than a lot of people realize, to make a demo that you can present in a show. So it's essentially like it's an extra deadline. It's an extra thing everyone has to work towards, and it's an extra level of complexity. So, like for some devs, it's kind of like at a point where they're kind of be like, oh man, this is a lot of extra pressure. Do we really have to deliver it by this date? And I suppose with COVID and the lockdown and the fact there isn't an E3, it frees up the ability to delay your event to a later date if necessary, So maybe they don't support E3 on that basis because COVID's still disrupting everything. Like, we've kind of as a society almost gotten used to it, but it's still massively disruptive across the whole world, So I don't know. I think it could go either way. Like maybe Microsoft does have a good, maybe the stars align and Microsoft gets a good range of demos that they can put a decent show together, or maybe it's more like they wait a bit and relieve pressure on their devs and make it slower. I don't know, but it could go either way, I think.
I think they're gonna have multiple. Now I don't know if what your theory about like Bethesda having one separately and then Xbox having one. I do think they're gonna have multiple events throughout the year, and I'm wondering, since you have so much content now, granted, a lot of the content's releasing at the end of this year and then especially 2022 and 2023. How are you going to introduce a lot of this stuff that isn't going to get particularly a big shine during these events? Like, assuming Starfield launches the end of this year and you have some sort of trailer for it or a demo at an Xbox Game Show, right? Like, plus Halo Infinite, plus potentially Forza Horizon 5, and then I think it's time Microsoft starts to more or less look at the Nintendo Direct format and what Sony does with State of Play and finally be like, okay, we have our big events where we like announce games and show them off, but then when we get close to release, we also are going to have a 30-minute inside Xbox, but not inside Xbox like that you currently think with like Major Nelson and all those guys, but like, here's Todd Howard talking about Starfield for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Here's Halo, and a Halo event, strictly Halo, for 45 minutes, showing off the campaign and the multiplayer with the developers talking over it. You know, like, that is kind of what I want Microsoft to shift more and do more of. Like, it really seems, in my opinion, that like Nintendo gives more of their games a shine by having these individual showcases, and it makes them seem more special, where Microsoft tends to shy away from that for whatever reason. And I think if you're going to have all this new stuff, then not everybody's going to know about it, so you're going to have to do that. That's what I want. Like, hell, do one for Psychonauts 2. Whenever Psychonauts 2 is ready, do a 15-minute thing with Tim Schafer talking over a level or something. Just to, like, tell people, like, this is Psychonauts 2. It's coming out. It's in Game Pass. Here's some cool stuff you can do, and here's Tim Schafer being funny. Look forward to the game. I think that's something 100% that they need to do, and I wonder if anybody in chat agrees with me, and I wonder if you do. Do you think they should start doing that for most of their releases?
Yeah, I think, like, putting a brand on your delivery of news is incredibly smart, and it's one of the smartest things Nintendo have done. Like, the word direct, you know, they could apply it to anything. Pokemon Direct, Animal Crossing Direct, Super Metroid Direct, or Metroid Prime Direct, whenever they do that. You know, it's super clever, and it's you know, it's one of the things Nintendo does extremely well is marketing, you know. And as someone who works in news, you know, I think it's important to have a consistent brand and a consistent, you know, it's almost like iconography to give your audience an instant knowledge of what kind of format you're going to be delivering. And I think, like, because Microsoft experiments so much and they don't stick to a single thing, and you know, they do some weird stuff sometimes, and you know, it's always a bit hit and miss. I think, like, it's almost frustrating that Nintendo has given them a blueprint of how to deliver news about their games, and they don't follow it for some reason. Like, I don't know why. I don't know if there's some voices in Microsoft's marketing team that are just like, no, we don't want this because whatever reason, you know, it maybe it eliminates some people's, you know, or diminishes some people's roles internally or something. Maybe it's political. So I don't know. But I think the Nintendo Direct format is awesome, and I think Microsoft should totally rip it off because it's just so damn nice, you know. And frankly, some of Microsoft games are actually using this format. Like Minecraft Dungeons, for example, released an 8-minute long video about the Nether DLC for Minecraft Dungeons today, and that is like really good format. Like the Minecraft is actually doing this format right now, and it's doing really well. I don't know why whoever runs the Minecraft operation for those kind of direct style news updates on video take over all of Xbox's news delivery, because it's pretty good.
Please,
pretty damn good.
Please take it over.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Gaming Addict. He says, "What if? Hear me out, Ray Ninjas. I'm Bethesda with googly eyes." I don't believe you on that one, Addict. King 2002 says, a Nintendo Direct style video in March or April for smaller games announced last year, updates and release dates, then save the big games for June. Yeah, I think people would appreciate that. I just want them to highlight more of their games and give them all a spotlight. Like, it feels like you can tell how much Microsoft cares about a game by how much they talk about it, but now that you have Bethesda and you have 15 studios and you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff, it's like, yeah, show off a new trailer and maybe a short gameplay demo, but like when that game's getting ready close to release, boom, you know, you show off 30 minutes of Starfield and 30 minutes of Halo Infinite and 20 minutes of Hellblade. Like, get people excited and show them what's coming. Like, that's what marketing should be doing. That's their job. And the fact that we haven't really seen a lot of that is like, well, you're really doing your job? Like, you're just sending some of these games out to die? Or do you hope that Xbox Game Pass is the marketing vehicle that you're looking for so you don't have to spend a lot of money doing these things? But then Like, I can make a video. You know, like, my videos take maybe 2.5, 3 hours to make. I know Colt's videos take anywhere between like 5 or 6. Like, somebody at the studio or whatever can easily compile some footage and talk over it and make you excited. Like, I don't. It's like, I don't think it's that expensive to do. It should be done, unless of course you think the game's garbage. Then obviously you don't want to really market it, like hide it. You know, like, oh, don't worry about this game. You know, because it's kind of true for Sony. Like with Sony, you can always tell what Sony thinks about a game and how they think it'll review by how early they let people review it. You know what I mean, Jez? Like if Sony's embargoes are a week before the game comes out, they think it's going to review fantastic. If the embargo is really close to release date, they think the game's going to be mediocre. If it doesn't have an embargo, like then you end up with stuff with like Destruction All Stars, which review in the 60s. So these companies know what they have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they got something good, they'll give people plenty of time to play it. But just do that. It's free advice we're giving you here, Microsoft. Just promote your games more, please. What else we got here? EA deciding Anthem's fate. What do you think, Jez? Jason Schreier talked about how basically EA was going to go over Anthem's next this week and either say, hey, you're doing a great job and you can staff up and have more people do it and we're going to revitalize Anthem, or they're going to pull the plug. If you had to guess, does EA reinvest in Anthem's future, or does EA pull the plug and Anthem is dead?
I have a feeling that Anthem is probably dead. I think
no.
EA is the last company I would expect to see take a risk and double down and save that kind of game. I think if they were gonna save Anthem, they would have done it already. And like Anthem next, like the team that were allocated to fix Anthem was so small. They didn't have a chance, and it sucks because I tweeted out last week that I had more fun with Anthem than I've ever had with Destiny. I think Anthem has better combat than Destiny. I think Anthem is more interesting than Destiny. And I know this is not going to sit well with some people, Destiny fans, and I apologize, but I find Destiny to be soulless, bland, and just every time I play it, I just hate it.
So wait, are you saying that Lord Cognito of Iron Lord's podcast is playing a soulless, bland video game? He listens to the show every single week, and I'm calling him out here. So are you saying that he's been spending his life the last few years since Destiny 1 playing a lifeless, soulless, video game? Is that what you're saying, Lord Cognito and Lord Addict and Lord and King David? What these guys are doing?
Sometimes it's okay to play a soulless game. I think sometimes you kind of just want a gameplay loop that's simple and you just jump on 20 minutes, get some loot. I don't see any problem with that at all. Playing World of Warcraft repeatedly over the years, it does get to a point where it's just like, I've done this dungeon like 50 times and I'm doing it again, and then that starts feeling soulless too. I think it's like, I don't think it's a bad game by any means. Like, the combat is really tight and the shooting mechanics are really tight, and the artwork in Destiny is truly stunning. Like, there's a lot of things to like about it. But for me, and just talking about me personally, I just can't stand the game. Like, every time I play it, like I played that new DLC with the stasis powers and whatever, and I was just like, I was so bored, man. I was just so bored, and but when I played Anthem, I had way more fun. Like, the combos, the classes were divergent and unique and different. Like, the warlock type class with the casting was played so differently from like the other classes in Destiny. Like, Destiny's classes of like, yeah, I've got a grenade, everyone's got a grenade, everyone's got a melee attack, the animations are basically all the same. It just really bores me. Whereas like the Colossus in Anthem was played so differently from the caster class. I can't even remember the name of the caster class anymore. It's been that long. But I played Anthem last week because I was exploring, writing an editorial about it. The game's dead. Like I couldn't queue. Like, and you can't solo some of the missions. You have to have a balanced group. And I couldn't get anyone to matchmake with because there's no one playing it.
In PvP?
So no, there's no PvP in Anthem. It's just PvE.
Yeah.
So I couldn't I match made for a dungeon in Anthem, and there's just no one. So I was like solo against these mobs, and I couldn't kill them because it's balanced around four player PvE. So I think like truth be told, Anthem, to revive Anthem would require a sort of Final Fantasy 14 Realm Reborn level of investment. And I think EA is embarrassingly risk averse. They are a company that has shown time and time again that they don't take risks. And I think Anthem is the kind of risk they won't take. I would love to be proven wrong, but I think you probably agree with me that Anthem is dead and it's never coming back.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they're going to pull the plug on Anthem and they're just going to be like, all right, get to work on Dragon Age. You know?
Yeah, I think like Dragon Age is almost feels like the last hope for Bioware, honestly. Like if Dragon Age flops, I can't see a future for Bioware, honestly. Like Bioware's like lost so much of its historical talent. Like so many of its big name devs have left the studio and moved on. Like, you know, Mass Effect Andromeda was left unfinished with an unresolved story. And Dragon Age recently lost its game director, I think. And someone who's like been with the franchise since the beginning. And I love BioWare. Like, they were my favorite studio for years. Dragon Age Origins is one of the few games I've completed like more than 10 times. You know, Dragon Age Origins is one of my favorite games of all time. Like, I absolutely adore that game. And I even like Dragon Age 2, which, you know, a lot of people didn't. And Dragon Age Inquisition, you know, I thought that was great as well. But it EA just doesn't do itself any favors. Like, this is the whole meme about EA being a studio killer is playing out in real time, watching the slow rot of BioWare. You know, it's painful to even talk about it. You know, and I know everyone's excited about the Mass Effect Legendary Collection, and I'll totally buy that. You know, because it's, you know, nostalgia and stuff like that, but. Man, it makes me sad.
Well, you know who seems to be doing good under EA is Respawn, though.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like it's because they give Vince Zampella, if I pronounced his name correctly, I might not have done, and I apologize. They give him the freedom to be a game dev, and luckily he's proven himself repeatedly that he can deliver without a ton of oversight, you know. So they give him the freedom to do that. Whereas for whatever reason, they didn't give Bioware that same freedom. And you know, this is what's happened. So
that's definitely true. Let's see, we got super chat from Chaos Might. It says, had Game Pass Ultimate, converted the first time for a year, then waited it out, got 3 years ago, then converted it to Game Pass Ultimate 2 years and 3 months. So talking about the conversion stuff. I see Miles is in chat. I was wondering if he enjoyed our conversation about Pokemon and Nintendo. If you guys didn't know, I did a podcast with Miles last weekend on Windows Central's gaming channel, where Miles tried to, you know, he tried to get me on the whole Pokemon Nintendo thing. But as me and Jez discussed later on, I think it was just because at that point in time, I was just too old, and I wasn't. I had no friends who played Nintendo at that point, so I just missed out on Pokemon. You know, that whole poll. Remember your poll you put out?
Yep.
Yeah. What
I
was
remember.
what was the end results of that poll?
Let me have a look. I don't know. I would have to dig for it. Do you remember
Okay.
what the tweet said? I could
It
search
was
for it,
like
I guess.
age groups of people that got into Pokemon, and like my age
Oh
group was like
yeah.
5% or something. Everybody was a little bit
Uh,
younger. Either way, Xbox Series X outsold the PS5 in January in UK and then South Africa. Should we read anything into this, Jez, about Xbox outselling
I think
PS5
what
and Switch in some of these countries, or is it just kind of, well, every system seems to be supply constrained, so whatever system has the most available is the one that's going to sell the most for now, essentially?
Yeah, I think it's all what it indicates is stock allocation. I don't think it necessarily showcases that Xbox is in higher demand in those countries. But at the very least, it shows that Xbox is still in demand. I think like it would be what would be scary is if Xbox wasn't selling out. The fact that it is selling out shows that there is still a huge amount of demand for Xbox and stuff like that. It's funny, because when I was writing about Oculus Quest 2 the other week, I did notice that they're in stock everywhere. That it's like you can't buy a Switch, you can't buy an Xbox, you can't buy a PlayStation, but you can buy an Oculus Quest 2. They apparently don't have the same supply issues that graphics cards and consoles have right now. Um, so at least you can infer that there is continuing demand for Xbox, but I don't think it describes anything beyond stock allocation, frankly.
Yeah, because I think in that January NPD numbers came out and Switch was number one and had like the best unit sales since the Wii in January of 2010. So it's selling pretty incredible. And PS5 had the most dollar sales, but got a $500 and a $400 one. So I just it's one of those things where they're selling them as fast as they can make them. So I'm sure both Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo wish they had more stock available to sell, right? Um, and
Yeah,
Xbox has said recently that they expect it to be kind of hit or miss for stock until about June, to about halfway in the year. And Phil's talked about how this holiday is more important than launch, essentially. And it's like, well, let's hopefully you bring the games then, because you didn't really launch with anything. And if holiday 2021 is supposed to be bigger, or at least more important, then if you can line up a Forza Horizon 5, Starfield, Halo Infinite, Ubisoft, and Game Pass holiday, then that's going to be pretty good. I would imagine Sony's going to have like Horizon Zero Dawn or Forbidden West, maybe God of War 2, although I doubt it. Did you see Ratchet and Clank got a release date coming June 11th?
I did see that. Yes.
Now, originally, last year, they said Ratchet and Clank was launch window. So I'm going to ask you this question. Is June launch window? Would you consider June
They
launch window when it
are
comes to the consoles?
they are kind of stretching the definition of launch window, I think. But it's fine, I guess. But um, I don't know. Do you consider that a launch window?
No,
I
absolutely
suppose
not.
no.
Absolutely not. April is about, the limit, what I would say, for launch window. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. But I suppose like, could it be considered a launch window as long as stock problems persist? I don't know.
Nah. I don't know. I
Just
just, I mean, maybe there
trying
was,
to bend the rules of Sony, giving Sony the benefit of the doubt here.
yeah, I don't know. That's not launch window. But then, of course, COVID, maybe the game got pushed. Maybe it was planned for earlier. Like Returnal got delayed a month and a half.
Yeah.
So, there are people speculating that maybe they delayed them because they want people to have more systems so the games can sell more. I think it's more like, hey, the game just probably needed more time. But either way, CD Projekt Red had a big issue. Somebody stole their source code and then auctioned it off and sold it for like $7 million. What is going on here, Jez? What's going on with CD Projekt Red?
Yeah, so CD Projekt Red's servers were breached in a massive attack. I don't actually know if I don't know if it was like actual, you know, sort of like a security flaw or someone in their network administration team got phished, or if maybe it was even an inside job, disgruntled employee trying to get their own back or make some money or something. Like the investigation into that is ongoing, but yeah, it's a pretty nasty scenario overall. CD Projekt Red lost its source code and then had their servers encrypted and locked, which they had to restore from a backup then. And then the source code got sold on the black market to a buyer who stipulated that they'd only buy it if the source code was no longer distributed anywhere else. Although I have no idea how they plan to enforce that. So, what kind of buyer would do that? And I think it was Jeff Grubb on Twitter who was speculating that it was probably like Chinese potentially countries, not countries, like Chinese kind of developers who are historically, shall we say, agnostic about copyright. In cloning games. But to be fair, so are like Western developers. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a bunch of Cyberpunk, Witcher sort of clone mobile games in the future from like the East and the West, I guess. But it's kind of like, what can I do about it now? All you can do really is move on. But and yeah, Jeff didn't specifically say China, but he kind of, that's kind of what
he implied that it was. So
it's kind of what you think of when you say like a country that is agnostic towards copyright. It's it's the countries that are basically out of reach of European and American legal jurisdiction, and there aren't many countries in the world that can get away with that. So it kind of narrows it down to like a couple, So it is what it is. And I suppose like it's gonna be a tough year to move on from for CD Projekt Red, I think. Like they've battered their reputation with releasing. Yeah, man, it still kind of bugs me that in as late as like October they were saying, oh, the base games of Cyberpunk are actually shaping up pretty nicely, to paraphrase. And like I trusted them, I trusted that you can't say that unless it's true, because you will torpedo your reputation. So I trusted them with that. So like when I played the PC version and it was pretty good and rock solid in terms of, I mean, it was pretty buggy when I first played it, but then like the day one patch fixed most of the issues I had when I played through it. And then the base Xbox One and PS4 versions are just a complete mess. Like some of the videos I've seen of those versions are just crazy.
Yeah, they really screwed their reputation. I don't know. It just seems like once that all happened, it was just like, well, now the hackers are gonna get them. And who knows if like their actual source code was sold though? Like I have press X to doubt, right? Like we'll see. Humdrug Dog 0211 says, you saw Greenberg's Twitter story? You think Bethesda deal is done? He had a Twitter story of Fleet. God, I hate Fleets. What a dumb name.
Fleet.
Where it was like Xbox plus, the Fallout boy with the thumbs up or whatever. People are like, hey, does that mean the deal's getting close to being done? I would imagine when the deal's done, they'll get an announcement because that'll be a huge thing. So they still need to get regulator approval in the EU, which we know is coming soon. I don't know if it's passed in the US yet, and I would assume Japan would have to pass it too. So
I don't get that, man. I don't get why. I don't know if someone who understands legal stuff can explain this, or even if you can explain this. Why does the EU have to approve a deal between two American companies?
Because they have holdings in Europe.
All right.
They have European studios, European holdings, both Microsoft and Bethesda. And that's why I also think Japan might have to approve the deal because there's the Japanese holding. So pretty much.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Like if Bethesda only had studios in US, then it would just be a US thing, but because they're
So could the EU be like, well, okay, sell off your European bits like Arcane, I guess. Because Arcane has a studio in France.
If they felt that it infringed on competition and stuff, they could say, okay, like, because with the Disney, so when Disney and Fox merged, right, or when Disney bought Fox, they approved it, but with the condition that Disney would have to divest some of its TV holdings. So like they had to sell off some of their like TV holdings in some of the European channels or something like that. And once they did, like, it was approved. So if somehow they felt Microsoft owning Bethesda was this huge anti-competitive thing, which it's not whatsoever, they could make some kind of things being like, well, do X, Y, or Z. So I don't think they'll make any sort of stipulations about things they have to change. It'll just be like, yeah, okay, you're good to go. We approve it, and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. I expect that to either we could see the deal closed by the end of this month, but I'm expecting latest March. I mean, I think it's getting to that point where they want the deal closed. And then maybe Phil goes on for an interview, maybe Todd Howard, and I bet you someone's going to ask about the exclusivity of these titles. And it's going to be really interesting to see what their answer is. Are they going to tap dance around it? Or are they going to come out and be like, no, the plan is this. Whether or not they're all multi-platform or whether or not like they're all exclusive with some caveats. It's going to be interesting to see what those answers are going to end up being. We might actually get them pretty soon. Ermi says, Rand, any news on what the BC team is doing? Will more BC 360 and OG Xbox games comes out? I hope they start adding more BC games. Like open the program up more. But yeah, we'll have to. I'm more interested in like the frame rate doubling. They talked about that last year, and we all thought it would be there at launch. They even showed like Fallout 4, 60 frames, and that didn't launch. So hopefully we find out more about that stuff, soon. Hopefully. Yeah, I think that's it, Jez. I think we hit all the stuff I wanted to talk about. You want to take some questions before we get out of here?
Yeah, man. Let's take some questions from the peeps.
All right, guys. If you want to ask a question, make sure you type it in chat, and we will do our best to answer it. I want to thank everybody for being here on this Friday. You guys are awesome. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe button if you're new. You can always hit the notification bell so you're notified every time we go live or I drop a new video. You can follow me and Jez on Twitter, where we always tweet about it. Jez tweets more than I do, so I'm usually a good Twitter follow. I won't clog up your feed. Shout out to Dark CMF, the newest member of the channel. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Enjoy the emotes. So I'm gonna be tonight. I'm gonna probably play a little bit more Hitman 3. And I'm going to see what the Final Fantasy 7 announcements are from that concert. I think that's like midnight Eastern. I think it's happening. So I'll stay up and see what the announcement is. I just have this gut feeling it'll be PS5 and PC. And then Xbox fans are going to be like, well, wait a minute, I thought it was a year or whatever. You know what I mean? Let's see. We also got another new member, Dova Getty. Sorry if I said your name wrong, buddy. Thanks for joining the channel. Enjoy your emotes. We have a question from Humdrug, who says, you and Jess have a gun to your head. You got to predict Bethesda exclusivity. All right, here we go. I think new IP exclusive. So Starfield will be exclusive. I think if it's a game that is continuing a story, like Wolfenstein 3, I think that's multi-platform because I don't think Xbox wants to be seen as a bad guy. So when Wolfenstein 3 gets announced this year, and I think when it launches next year, I think that game's going to be multi-platform because it's continuing and closing out the trilogy of BJ. And I think Xbox is going to be a little bit averse to being the bad guy, like, oh, you took this away and this is the continuation of the story. So I think Wolfenstein 3 will be multi-plat. But any new IP is going to be exclusive. And then when you get into franchises like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, since those are standalone titles that don't exactly continue a story, I think those will be exclusive. So if they ever do an Evil Within 3, I think might be multi-platform. Maybe if Arcane's game is Dishonored 3, depending on if it's a direct continuation, maybe that's multi-platform. I'm not sure, but that's kind of what I predict. New IP exclusive. If it's like a game in a like a sequel trilogy, I think they'll keep it multi-platform. What do you think, Jez? Gun to your head.
Gun to my head, it makes sense to me that Microsoft wouldn't want to prevent people on PlayStation from experiencing the end of a trilogy or the end of a story. Like you say, it could be, bad press. And we all know that Microsoft doesn't like bad press and doesn't want to be seen as the bad guy. So, yeah, I agree with you that Wolfenstein 3, because it's a direct sequel, and it'd be weird if someone bought Wolfenstein 1 and 2 on PlayStation and they couldn't finish the story. I think that does sound like something that Microsoft would do. But I think like Elder Scrolls, which would be a self-contained story, not like a direct story sequel to Skyrim, stuff like that. I think those kind of games will go exclusive. Starfield, for example. So yeah, I agree with you. I think like if it's, but I also see things like Prey. If there's another Prey game, I don't think necessarily that would be such a direct sequel. I think that's the kind of game that they could do as a separate sort of thing. And also like maybe even games that aren't so story oriented, like the next Doom, for example. Yeah, Doom has a story, but do we really play it for that? So I think like in the case of Wolfenstein, which is super story heavy, yeah, I could see that being multi-platform. But I think games like Doom maybe less so, which aren't so story heavy. But I don't know. I think it truly could go either way. But time will tell. But I think Starfield and Elder Scrolls and the next Fallout and stuff like that, I think those will be exclusive.
Yeah. Shout out to Bano for being the newest member. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for your support and enjoy those lovely emotes. Lydia Santosa says, people want old IP to return like Banjo-Kazooie or Killer Instinct, but Phil Spencer said he wants studios to make the games they want, so what is the line? Do we want new IPs or do we want the old games resurrected? I think for me personally, I think there's a fine line where you can do both. I know a lot of people were disappointed that the initiative was bringing back Perfect Dark instead of making a new IP. I'm essentially fine with Perfect Dark because it's basically going to be a new IP. It's just going to have some of the trappings of Perfect Dark, but for all intents and purposes, it's something brand new. And some people just really have, they want to relive their childhood. So Banjo-Kazooie is a franchise they love. So they want Microsoft to bring it back. And people love Killer Instinct, and they want Microsoft to continue on with those franchises. So it's a bit of both. I think you can, service the fans and their desires for continuing franchises while also still bringing new IPs and stuff. Right, Jez?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, if you've got an established brand, it's just like you clear so many hurdles and so many problems that you would ultimately have if you were making a new IP. Like, making a new IP is hard. It's really hard and it's expensive. Like if you go out there with Perfect Dark, everybody already knows on some residual level what to expect, and that alleviates a lot of stress from the project. So I think like it's fine to use old IP, and also there's a nostalgia factor. A lot of people who are my age, and especially Rand's age, like Rand is getting seriously old. He'll be using the Zimmer frame soon. We like nostalgia at our age because it reminds us of the good old days before our bodies were falling apart and the inevitability of death.
Yeah, jeez. We're getting dark in this episode.
Yeah. Oh man. But it's like I said before, like 95% of the reason I play Pokemon is nostalgia. Like if I take a step back and look at Pokemon with a bird's eye view, everything about it just doesn't make sense as a 2021 game, like, or 2020 game whenever it came out. But it's that juicy nostalgia, man. Makes you feel good. It's a drug, man.
Mathos Santos says, so there'll be Hellblade 2 on PS5. No. That game's only announced for the Xbox Series X and S and PC. Although I guess you could say what we're saying with Bethesda, we're a continuation of a story, then why isn't that one on there? Well, you see, like, that's where Xbox Game Studios versus Bethesda and how Bethesda's going to be independent, but yet answer to Phil kind of comes in there, where nobody expects any of the Xbox Game Studios games to be on other platforms. But you never know with Bethesda. Like, if they're independent, and that's the thing. It's like the exclusive question is very interesting because they all could be exclusive. Or it could be like I said, where anything new is exclusive, but anything that's tied to an existing story could be multi-plat, or they're all multi-plat. We just don't know at this point. I mean, I've said I expect the vast majority of the games to be exclusive. I do think Wolfenstein 3 will be multi-platform, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't think anything coming from Xbox Game Studios is not going to be on PlayStation. So,
I would hope in the face of, just to add to that, like in the face of Sony, basically buying up games and buying up exclusivity and blocking games from Xbox like they're doing with Final Fantasy VII remake. I would hope Microsoft will be bullish and just be like, yeah, these are all exclusive. I think Microsoft should do that. I think Microsoft should send a message to its users and its fans that they will fight for this platform and not, worry about what the fans on its platform that don't give a crap about Xbox think.
Yeah, exactly.
I would hope they'd be bullish on that. But I also know Microsoft is the way Microsoft is, where it's like, they want to be seen as like, we're the nice company, we're going carbon neutral, guys.
Yeah, even though we wanted to double the price of Xbox Live. We're good, guys. We're good.
Carbon neutral, yeah.
$120 for Xbox Live, even though we added nothing in the past 10 years, and we're double the price of PlayStation Plus. Oh wait, nobody liked that idea? Okay, we're all right? We're really pro consumer. Hey, do you guys want free to play games actually free? Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Dark CMS says, love the podcast, guys. I have to agree with Rand on this. Bethesda's Xbox thing, optics matter. Thank you. Let's see. Mr. J says, who do you want Xbox to acquire next? Since I've been playing them, Hitman games, IO Interactive. There we go. That'd be who I want them to acquire next. IO Interactive, because Hitman's so amazing. What?
You like that, right? You'd like that, huh?
Hitman's amazing. They're a privately independent studio. They're independent, privately owned studio. There wouldn't be any public stuff. It's like, you know what? That studio's got a future. Pick them up, scoop them up while you can.
Very, very dragony.
Here you go, Jez. Here's a comment for you from Thomas P. Do you think Age of Empires 4 is 2021 or 2022?
No comment.
No comment on Jez. I think Age of Empires 4 is this year, but I honestly, like, with everything going on, it could slip to 2022. But I think it might be this year. Danger Man says, I wonder, is there any chance that a lot of Microsoft's acquisitions are redundant, like 2023 having Doom Next, Gear 6, and Perfect Dark, multiple RPGs in 2024, etc.? I get what you're trying to say, like Fable, Avowed, Elder Scrolls, those are RPGs, and I think Microsoft is going to want to spread them out. So, like, next year's Avowed, 2023 is Fable, 2024, potentially, Elder Scrolls 6 or 2025 an Exiles game. But I think some of those titles are just like, if that's enough time for the next Doom game to come out, you could have the Doom game at the beginning of the year and then Gears at the end, or vice versa. It would be nice for 2023 to have Gears 6, because that would be a 4-year run for them when normally they have to turn it around in 3. But that's going to be the great thing about Xbox in the years to come, is that they have so many studios making so many games that there's just going to be so much to play, and you won't really care that Doom is in March, and then at the end of the year there's also Gears, because next year is going to have some other cool stuff, Yeah. Let's see here. Sean LeBrie just said, just wanted to say what's up, guys. I've been lurking and working in the background. Thank you for watching, Sean. And I love the new logo that you made. You're the best. Let's see. Sherman Jacobs wants to know if we have any info on the next Forza game. No, I mean, we did see Forza Horizon 4 get announced to come to Steam on March 9th, as well as the Hot Wheels Legends Car Pack. So there's some of that about it maybe being an expansion has been put to rest. Forza Horizon 4 coming to Steam, does that make sense with potential Forza Horizon 5 coming this year? End of this year in like September to PlayStation, or to like just releasing in general. There's no Forza game on Steam, so you want to build up a community before you sell it there. I don't know. I'm very on again, off again with Forza Horizon 5 this year, Jazz.
Yeah, it could go either way. It's like a lot of things this year could go either way, because you just don't know how much of an impact COVID's going to have. Like, the UK is just emerging from a third massive lockdown, and infections are still up higher than they were in April because of that new variant or whatever they call it. So you just don't know what's going to happen. And obviously, Forza Horizon is being made in the UK, and the UK is currently in total work from home lockdown, if for those who don't know. So I have no idea if that's going to impact things. But we'll just have to wait and see. It could go either way. But yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we got here.
Someone asked which MMD27 asks what Xbox studio has the most potential. That's an interesting question. I've always thought the State of Decay franchise had huge potential, just based on how popular DayZ was, even though it was and is janky as hell, and other similar sort of survival games. Like, I always thought State of Decay had this unique PvE sort of take that riffs on the whole sort of, base building and zombie apocalypse fantasy. But it never really delivered on that concept perfectly. But I think, like, now that they're part of Microsoft and they have all the tech and they have the extra investment and they have, like, more staff and they've got more experience with the Unreal Engine, because obviously it was their first time using it, which, judging from Mass Effect 1, we know that it can, when you switch to a new engine, sometimes, you need a bit of practice with it or whatever. So I think, like, I would love to see Undead Labs truly deliver on, what State of Decay's promise was always set at, and also the expectations set by that very, very slick CGI trailer, which may be overselling the game already. I don't know why they keep doing that, Rand. Why do they keep doing that?
I don't know why.
Showing these, like, super slick CGI trailers that oversell their games. I wish they would stop doing that. Because now I'm expecting State of Decay 3 to look that good.
Well, you never know. Maybe it will.
Maybe it will. I hope it will. But
maybe it will.
Which studio do you think's got the most?
I think either Ninja Theory or Obsidian. Like, Obsidian's already been a great studio now that they don't have to worry about budget. And they don't got to worry about, like, they could, sky's, the limit's the moon. Ninja Theory, same thing.
To the moon.
Yeah, like, those are the two that come up for me. Aunt Jemima Dixon says, hey, Rand, do you think Sony is buying Remedy or FromSoft? No. These rumors have come up before. I understand why they came up with FromSoft because Sony bought some stake in their parent company. But I don't think so. And there's that rumor Sony was buying Remedy last year that people were convinced about. But, they didn't. If Sony buys anybody, it'll be Bluepoint and House Marquee. They recently also did try to buy Leua, the people that do, like, Warframe and things like that. But I think Tencent beat them out on that. Thaneros says, when we will start to see new console in stock at every retailer? Xbox said about June-ish time. Rudy says, do you see that there's a fake of you on Twitter making racist tweets? Is there? Is that why I saw some people in here saying I was racist or something? And why there was someone on Windows Central last week saying I was a racist person? Is this the reason? Is there a fake Randall Flora?
It's the same person calling you that's probably making the accounts. Just some sad loser troll being a sad loser troll as usual.
I see Cloberl's in the chat. He says, love both of you, Squirrel. Tell us what you know, Cloberl. Tell us what you know. You have all the secrets.
Leak something.
Yeah, leak something for us. Chinook Guy says, likelihood of Scalebound being made, 0. Why does this always come up about Scalebound being remade again or a new Scalebound coming? Scalebound's dead.
Dead. It's never coming back, ever.
Yeah.
Get Scalebound out of your minds, guys, because it is never coming back. Never.
Never coming back.
Never.
Let's see. I think I'm scrolling down. I'm going to see if I see any more. Chinakai says, Xbox's weakest genre that they need to work on. Fighting games?
Fighting. Jinx.
Yeah, say fighting games for sure. They have RPGs, they have shooters. Maybe
bring back Killer Instinct.
Maybe the third-person cinematic action game a la PlayStation. Maybe that genre. But yeah, fighters are definitely weak. Iceseller says, Mr. Rand and Jez, back in the day, it was always CGI trailer first and then gameplay minutes after E3. It needs to return to that. I mean, I don't mind CGI trailers when it's the first time you show a game, but I need that gameplay to truly get hyped. And Dan says, I played more hours of State of Decay more than any other Xbox game on PC and Xbox. I love it. I don't see janky or buggy anymore. So he doesn't see janky. I mean, people love State of Decay, but they did set an expectation with that trailer, though, that it's going to look like that. And hopefully it does. So
yeah. State of Decay is like popular. Like it's had like remarkable staying power. Like the community who play State of Decay is like, it's not as big as Sea of Thieves, but it's still decently sized and it's still bringing people back in, and they're still doing updates, and they've polished a lot of stuff up and added features and stuff like that. But State of Decay 2 seems like it's sort of hit its limits from the systems they put in the game. So what State of Decay 3 really needs is like more modularity, more systems for building features on, because it really does feel like with State of Decay 2, they'd already pretty much done everything they could do with the systems they'd built, because a lot of the content they added was just like, new weapons here and there and stuff like that. And when they did add something, it had to be like in a completely new map, or it had to be in a separate mode. So like, I think a lot of engine work needs to be done for State of Decay 3, but I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll
wait and see. Victor Alliston says, how about Astronauts, the Witchfire dev? I think I've talked about that before. We've mentioned them. I mean, the thing about acquisitions is, things may be going good and then they fall apart when you do final offer, counter offer stuff. It's very complicated. And it's very rare when it happens. So like the fact that Bethesda happened and it is shocking still. Even still, it's like whoa, because it's not something that you
Yeah.
see every day. But man,
Both parties must have really wanted that to happen.
yeah. But like with Embracer Group buying all these studios and stuff, like now's the time to basically sell if you're looking to sell. Humdrug says, do you think by case can mean live service pre-contract? Yeah, and it refers to what Phil said about case by case basis. I think they'll honor any existing contracts and stuff like that. And you use case by case because more than likely you're going to have exclusives and you're going to have multi-platforms. So we're just trying to figure out which one is which games will be exclusive and which games will not be. So if I see any more, someone asked us about WandaVision. I haven't watched WandaVision yet. I'm waiting for. I'm gonna start watching it the last week the final episode airs. I don't watch shows week to week. I'm done doing that. So this whole Disney Plus, Amazon Prime stuff of doing stuff week to week, I don't watch the shows. I wait for them all to get to the end and then I binge it all. I can't stand watching week to week anymore.
I love week to week because they're something to watch while I'm eating my dinner. But I don't actually know it. I see people tweeting about WandaVision 24/7. I don't know what the hell it is. I thought it was when I first saw the word WandaVision, I thought it was like some kind of VR or augmented reality technology. So what is that, a WandaVision headset or something? What is it? What is it? I don't know.
I don't know. So
oh man, we're out of touch, man.
I mean, I haven't watched WandaVision yet, so I don't know. One Bad Mother says, listening while working. Great show, friends. Love your shows. Thanks for watching, brother. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me see here.
Do you have a TikTok account, Rand?
No, I don't have a TikTok account. No.
Did you see that Microsoft tried to buy Pinterest?
I did see that for like something like $50 billion or something. But
well, that's how much Pinterest is valued at. $50 billion.
That'd be huge. That'd be a huge thing. Humdrum wants
to. I'm kind of like, why?
I don't know. Somebody said they wanted it for Azure or something.
I don't know. I don't know why Pinterest has such a high value. Like, it's literally just an image board. I don't get it.
Humdrunk says, when are we getting release dates for Crossfire, Ascent, Tunic, Darktide, Warhammer, and those games? I think those would be up to those individual developers, right? Whenever they're ready to announce that whenever their games are coming out. Man, Crossfire was supposed to be last year. So was Ascent. So was Tunic.
Yeah.
So who knows when those games come?
Lots of COVID delays. I'm really looking forward to Ascent, though. The Ascent, or whatever it's called. Is it the Ascent or just Ascent? I think it's the Ascent.
I think it's the Ascent.
Yeah, that looks tremendous. Super detailed.
Yeah. Aunt Jemima says, Rand, do you think Sony's buying Remedy? I answered that question, but I'll just repeat, no. I don't think they're buying Remedy or From Software. But I think that's going to be it for the show, guys. Thanks for being here on this Friday, February 12th. If you're celebrating Valentine's Day, if you're lucky enough to have a significant other, then hope you enjoy your day with them for Valentine's Day. I'm going to be all lonely, be by myself. I don't have a Valentine, unfortunately. So I'll be all lonely, Jez.
Oh, bless you. My girlfriend sent me a block of cheese. A block of
cheese. What a great Valentine's Day gift. A block of cheese.
She know I'm doing this keto diet, right? This keto dieting. And she said she was going to send me a cake, but then she realized I can't eat cake, so she had me some like artisanal cheese, and which I like cheese, so I'm good with it.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week, hopefully with a lot more to talk about. So if you enjoyed the show, hit the like button, subscribe button, all that good stuff. You know the deal. And keep it gaming, guys, and we'll be back here next week. Later.